We'll run this back for the recording for the YouTube. So, welcome. Mouth Breathers Guild, first official podcast. I don't know if we'll call it. We got to think of a name for this podcast other than like MBG Live or like, I don't know, like Breathing
Comics. I don't know.
Breathing Comics, Mouth Breathing Comics, reading comics with your mouth. We'll figure it out.
Some mixture of those words.
It'll have mouth in it, that's for sure. That's a good word. So this is Reading with Your Mouth, an MBG live podcast. My name is Kiwi Spicy. I'm the resident lore master, comic book writer of the Mouth Breathers Guild. With me, I have Manny Tavares. Manny Tavares, yes. The Manny Draws.
This is me. I'm over here. Look at me go.
Manny's the best. He's the head artist in charge of Mouth Breathers Guild. You'll see many of his amazing works. Check out our comic books. We'll do a whole plug for that later. And then I also have another fellow mouth breather with me, another artist, good friend of the guild, Ben Hill. Ben, say hello to the good people.
Hey, everyone. I will add the same caveat that I did earlier when I was muted, but I will be saying a lot of dude and oh my gosh, so apologies ahead of time, but just stoked to be here to talk about Murder Falcon, which is amazing, as we will get into.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic. And then, of course, last but not least, the resident homosexual of the Mouth Breathers Guild, Sam.
Hi, I'm also the mascot.
The mascot, yes.
I repeat myself.
That's because you have such a pretty mouth.
Yeah,
ready to breathe.
Actually, yeah, I am. They keep me around for the mouth breathing. That's what they do.
It's so hot. It's so hot. Okay. So this week we wanted to start this podcast off right, start this live stream, whatever we're going to call this, breathing with your mouth, reading with your breathing mouth. Murder Falcon, Daniel Warren Johnson, colors by Mike Spicer. Holy moly, this book is so good. We could talk about this for a long time, so that's why we chose this book specifically, because it's just kind of endlessly good. We're going to deep dive, talk story, talk art, talk just overall quality, go through it, not page by page, but definitely just kind of flipping around, talking about some highlights, why this book is so good, why we love Daniel Warren Johnson particularly. Yeah, God, it's so good. Yeah. And
can I add one thing before you get into this, Kev? So you mentioned, Daniel does just about everything in this book. They give Russ Wooten a letter, accolade. What do you call that?
Credit.
Thanks. That's why we have Sam on here too. He's gonna make sure we use the right terms. But you'll see, like, even Daniel gets a letter credit because of all of his awesome onomatopoeia stuff in the background. So
yeah, he does it just straight on the page.
Yeah, he does it straight on the page. I'll flip back to these originals, just like
gorgeous.
Just to show like that he's literally always like doing
truly
this first.
Cartooning.
Yeah. And like, yeah, well, we can.
You're spoiling the end, Kev. You're spoiling the end.
Well, the end once you've read it. You will get to these pages when they're in full color. But oh my God, look at these originals! Just the amount that goes into just as like pencils and inks.
I also want to give a shout out to the editor of Murder Falcon, Sean Makowitz, who is the head of comics at the place I worked.
Skybound.
Nice.
Sean
Makowitz. It's not a Skybound published book, but it's Image, and they're part of the same. Their two imprints are part of the same kind of consortium. I don't know if that's the right word, but yeah.
Conglomerate. Yeah, shout out to all the editors and designers working in comics. They do the Lord's work, reining in us wacky creatives. I'm sure that they contributed in lots of ways that you'll never really see on the page or truly know. But man, Daniel Warren Johnson, Murder Falcon, this book's so good. We're going to flip back and just highlight this drawing because I love it.
Yeah.
Well, it's also because like I remember when he was drawing this, he started with the arm piece, and it was just these kind of like weird shapes. Like these just kind of like abstract, like weird little doodles, and I was like, what the hell is he drawing? And then it turned into the arm, and then he drew the rest of it, and this was all in like a matter of a few minutes, and I was just floored. It's so cool.
Yeah, I have to say, one thing I absolutely love about seeing Daniel in person is these are the things that he just loves to do. You guys were talking about it earlier, where he can carry on a conversation with you while he's drawing something like this, and he does this in a matter of minutes. But if you are looking for like a grail piece, and I'm saying this is something for yourself, like just go find Daniel at a local signing, go find him at a con, bring your trade paperback, bring your hardcover, like something that you're going to hang on to, because these are just holy grail items for me. They're so beautiful.
100%. I also think it's worth calling out, though, that it's going to be harder and harder to get those opportunities with Daniel.
Yeah.
Heroes Con last year, he had a line.
He's a rock star, dude.
He's huge now, especially with Transformers. I expect that to make him basically impenetrable, like just impossible.
Like, for one, I want to talk about how he's such a kind guy, right? And when we went to Heroes Con after we met him at the signing, he pretty much just looked at my portfolio for like 30 minutes or so, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Kevin was there too, and he just took his time, and he was just saying, "Oh, these are nitpicks. You don't have to do these, but these are just nitpicks." And it is ingrained in my mind. But I just want to take the time to say thank you, Dan. If you ever hear this at all, you are the man.
Dan is the man. Oh, we got Nate G Draws in the chat. Yo, Nate. We've never met, but I know you're very close friends with the other fellas. One day we will meet and we will kiss on the lips.
It's also an podcast as well.
Yeah, I'm game. I'm totally game for that.
Oh, nice.
Really love.
Nice. He's in here. More fellas. Yeah. Love it. Pants off boys party.
Well, just to mostly because I want to be selfish as well and talk about my own Daniel story. So it was 2 years ago, seeing him at Heroes Con. Man, very similar to Manny. I would have never said anything about having my portfolio. Thankfully, I had my iPad on me, so at least had a digital portfolio to show him. He was a little disappointed that it was only digital. But we were looking at some of the stuff that I had done, and he gave me a quick anatomy lesson on like how a pectoral muscle like goes into a shoulder, and so how you can really accentuate that. And he's like, "Do you have a piece of paper? Like, I'll just show you real quick." I'm like, "I have nothing. This is how unprepared I am as just someone coming to a con." And so he took a Sharpie and he took my hand and like drew it on my hand, showing me like, this is how you really accentuate that. Oh and God. I have a picture of it because I've sworn on my daughter's eyes that I will have a tattoo of that on my hand, exactly where he drew it.
That's so
that's
fire.
Like wizard shit, dude. Like that, What I'm saying?
100%.
Like an arcanist in the wild.
I think that should this should be a lesson learned for all artists, aspiring comic book people. Come to cons with paper and pens and be ready to draw at a moment's notice, because the opportunity will present itself. Like, especially at places like Heroes Con, where there is just like drink and draws and stuff going on literally all the time. Yeah. Come prepared. So don't end up like a dumb ding dong like Ben. And
I don't know what you're talking about. I have one of the best ideas for a tattoo I've ever had. So.
I will say, with this book in mind, let's look at this book. It's a hardcover book. The cover is amazing, and the innards are, just fit the aesthetic of the book of being rock and roll, being metal. Really fits that like punk zine. You know what I mean? So it just, hands off to the graphic designers out there that really put this together too. Like, really nailed the feel of Murder Falcon and the energy. 100%.
Hey guys, can I serve as maybe an interesting like counterpoint in that like I love comics, but I think I still consider myself a newbie when it comes to it. So I got some questions for you guys.
Yeah. Lay them on.
Like why you love Murder Falcon. But going to that point, Manny, I'm thinking like one of the things I think that comics as a medium is really cool is that it's whether it's physical or digital, but usually it's physical, the framing of everything, literally and figuratively, matters so much, right? So there's the
Yeah.
thought to not just the series, for example, or like the whatever the general arc of that series is, but also the individual comic. Can you like, do you guys have like in your designing of an individual comic, like what's your thinking on that? Do you plan all that in advance, or do you allow some of it to arise organically?
Just sort of like the design of each image kind of thing,
Or rather, I'm thinking like the front matter, the cover, and the framing, and the choice of
oh,
like where the panels sit. Like it seems like a lot to plan, and I suspect that a lot of it arises organically as well. But like, how
mhm.
much especially well, actually for all three of you, like four of you actually, like what kind of planning do you do? And like as you do more comics, do you find that you develop some like standards and maybe some like best practices around
Yeah.
that?
I feel like for each page there definitely needs to be like sort of an establishing shot, right? And Dan has that immediately as soon as we open up the page. We have this established shot. We're in this city. We see this monster, and now he can kind of just play with the imagery. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So he's going from like we see this monster, it's like, oh my god, everyone's running away from it. Then we see over the shoulder monster. Then tanks are coming in, people are coming in to fight it. Then there's action, then there's close-ups, right? So it's just establish, and then you can sort of play a little bit more on that page. And then that kind of entices the reader, that kind of entices the person viewing the comic to turn that page to the next one. Like you build up that momentum, you build up that sort of, I don't know, anticipation, like, okay, what's next, you know? So then you build up that energy, and then we go on to the next page, boom, and then we got another establishing shot, boom, van drives in, boom, clutch, like, let's park, let's have the foot swing out, and the cop's like, what's going on, boom, there we go, another establishing shot. So it's really setting up the scene and then having fun playing with that scene, I feel like, you know what I mean? And we can feel that with Dan's art. We can feel how much fun he's having on each page. And I think that's what speaks to me, especially with the energy in his line art, the energy in his storytelling in general. It's just this, it's fun and you can feel it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Like oh, go for it, Ben.
I think a lot of what you said there is completely accurate, and I have more to say about just the first few pages of the first issue. But talking about answering more to your question, Sam, how do we set it up? I think a lot of that is establishing character, motive. What's that piece that really draws everybody into the first part of the book? And you can see, especially with Murder Falcon, Dan is really drawing on his love for heavy metal music. I mean, you've got the Dragon Wagon, which I absolutely love. So if you like the license plate on the front of the van is DRGN Dragon Wagon. So even those little details, but it's like the '80s minivan, the guitar that that Jake is using, and then just the aesthetic of how '80s Murder Falcon is himself, like the red bandana, just all of it. I think that really it allows him to establish the character, and really, to me, for this story, Dan has done so much with so many other stories, which I'm so excited to talk about if given the chance. Do a Power Bomb, Space Mullet, Extremity, all those books that he's done, Ghost Fleet. But for this one, Jake and Murph are really the core that you follow throughout this entire book. And some of the other books, he's able to pull on heartstrings and other areas. And while there's so much of this heavy metal aesthetic, there's so much heart, and that all comes from Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and definitely like I would broadly I would say that like cover work, back matter, kind of the inner covers and stuff, it is like not planned ahead of time. Like it definitely comes organically after kind of doing the work through the book and kind of finding like it, to kind of accentuate what everyone else is saying, like finding the true meaning, the core of things, like both theme, character, feeling, vibe, like, and going into the heavy metal stuff, like I'm just kind of flipping through these variant covers that they did that are all literally heavy metal, like album cover parodies, essentially.
Yeah, it's so good,
and
dude.
they're fantastic. Hold on, I want to flip back. Actually, this is my favorite, both because this is just one of my favorite death metal records by Bolt Thrower, but this is also Tyrell Cannon. Shout out
Another
to
amazing
Tyrell
guy.
Cannon. Just
Yeah, seriously.
absolute mensch. Sweetheart, so generous with his time, loves to support other artists, good friend of Daniel, hopefully soon good friend of ours. We love talking to him, love hanging out with
I
him.
do want to say he has emailed me a lot and has, you know, helped Kevin and I out, I feel like, with all the information that he shared. So thank you, Tyrell. You are also the man. So
Yeah, talk about other heavy hitters though. We got Ryan Otley doing the Pantera parody over here with the vulgar display of metal. That is rad. There's which one was Paul Pope? Oh, Erica Henderson did this one.
Yeah,
this one is rad. Paul Pope did the this one, right? Yeah,
one of the last ones.
One of the last ones. He was on issue 8. He did the variant for 8.
Yeah, this is so rad. Well, because someone sick did the colors on the Paul Pope one too. I forget who the credit is on that.
Mike Spicer.
Yeah, Mike Spicer.
Spicer
which we'll gush about his colors. Yeah,
Spicer does the colors for everything else.
I've just been taking notes from Mike Spicer for coloring, so he is insane with that.
Just taking notes from the entire creation of this book. Me and Manny
Seriously.
are doing another heavy metal and violence book, and I basically just flip through this book when I need like concrete understanding of how like composition and storytelling like has to work on a page. And Dan does a lot of things that would honestly break my own personal rules. Like I want to find some of his busier pages because he's like able to cram like so many panels in. Like this here is so much story, so much content, and it is beautiful. Like he's just it has a rhythm to it. It flows. It doesn't feel over crammed. It like adds to the frenetic energy of the book, but like is also like this is a page where the story is slowing down. And there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 panels on here, which is just way too many panels.
Well, so number one, I get such a Dark Knight Returns vibe or Watchmen with just Alan Moore cramming in so much dialogue and so much interaction within a page. And what so again, you guys said, "Hey, do you want to do this?" So I really nerded out and went deep. Within the first 5 pages, I think Dan sets this up so much like an action movie that you see nowadays. There's only 101 words in the first 5 pages. You get very quick introductions to the 2 main characters. You get that full heavy metal aesthetic. You get, we're gonna fight monsters. We're gonna save babies. And we're just gonna really start to just shred. And I mean, I think when you put it into context of a heavy metal song, right? The beginning of a heavy metal song that most people get into, it's that really quick, frenetic, like guitar riff, building it up, and then you'll hit like a solo. And to me, that's when you start to get all the dialogue and the world building. But it shows also Daniel, I think, thinks visually first instead of thinks story first. And so he's able to kind of build, I want to see all this, and is able to do that in a different way than I think most writers do, because writers typically are worried about the words on the page. He has that, what's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like before it's what are people going to say and do?
Yeah. And I mean, when you flip to that page, Kevin, that's what I was thinking for Dark Knight was those
these tube TV panels, the news clip, like the 2 conversations going on that are like that's all this stuff at the top that's like between the bandmates all talking, like I need to find a tuner, and he's like, I'm almost insulted, like this guitar never goes out of tune. But then they're like talking about this, and then there's also like this little commentary about like, the world is ending with the Veldar, stay tuned for the world's most famous bikini model teaching how to make vegan chocolate cookies. Is like so funny.
So good.
Yeah.
Well, and what's awesome about that is like it's like the feeling that you get when you're trying to have a conversation and there's just a bunch of bullshit on TV, and it's like, and that kind of frenetic like pacing of that page really captures that like to a T. So that's awesome.
Yeah, those moments really are some of the best ones where like either like when he does it through flashbacks or just in these little moments of like respite between like kaiju fights where you really just get to see this band hanging out and being a band. Like those moments are like really what bring you in and make you feel like lived in right at home with these characters, which is so
like,
well done.
Speaking on that too, like when they're talking about when they're trapped, when they're finding the base and everything, when they're just like going back to the first time they played together or like the first riff that they played together and stuff, it's just like, oh man, that like brings me back to like playing Ramones and shit with you, man. Like I was like, I know exactly what he's talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, like, we can get into the broad thematic kind of content of the book where, like, literally I'll have to find the exact wording, but just the description of the heavy and, like, the world, like, is this idea that, like, yeah, a magnificent place filled with pinch harmonics and double bass drum beats. When one of these gateway instruments is played, it provides a window into the heavy, and although most cannot see it, it's the feeling we experience when the power of music overtakes us. It helps us heal. Like, holy shit. Like,
I was like, I got teary-eyed reading that, you know?
he just like, and he's able to like make such an abstract concept so simply distilled, like so palatable, so digestible. And part of it is just like giving that blurb on top of like this striking imagery of like the hammer on the anvil and just like this looking like a Dio album cover, you know. It's just like so good. And we get the little like subtle kind of foreshadowing with this like mastodon skull with what's to come. Like when you get just like one of the best reveals in the book. It's like one of my favorite 2-page spreads. Yeah, when they first encounter the mastodon, what's his name? Halford. After this shit is so
after Rob Halford.
Yeah,
is that the
faster than a laser bullet, louder than an atom bomb. Those are Judas Priest lyrics, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
And just this spread is so good. The gross just detritus, the speed lines, just the horns. It's so like you even get this grimace from the mastodon here, that like kind of squinted eye. It's so good.
Just the way he even draws like the gore and like the blood coming off it. I love that shit. It's like super chunky and gross. It's got some weight to it, you know? It's fantastic. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I want to throw this over to Sam and Nate, who are with us. You know, are both of you hyper familiar with Murder Falcon? Is this the first introduction to it? I think Sam, you mentioned you're the newbie.
Yeah, this is I've heard of the title for years now, but no, this is in short introduction to me, and I'm really enjoying it.
I can't actually read, so I don't
really awkward. We should have mentioned that at the top. Yeah,
it's true. When we were at Lightbox together, I was reading everything for Nate. So yeah, I can.
Yeah, that's true. I was like, "Where's the bathroom?" And then he's like, "They have a symbol for that. Actually, you don't have to read to find that." Yeah. But I made a point anyway. But no, I'm familiar with Daniel Warren Johnson basically through Manny, and I've not read any of his books because I just haven't read a lot of comics lately. So I'm an appreciator of all good art, but this is my first time like actually seeing like one of his like full books like page through.
Yeah.
So.
Plus one on that is like definitely introduced to DWJ through like once again I think that there's a lot of artists in this space, and I like feel like I recognize that name, but then I met Manny, who is, you know, I mean that's your dude. That's your dude.
Yeah. Manny also got me into this book. I pitched him my heavy metal comic idea, and he was like, "Oh, you should read Murder Falcon." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." And then we lived together, and he was like, "Dude, just read this book." And he put it in my hands, and then I just like read it in a single sitting and like cried my eyes out. And I was like, "Oh, this is the greatest book I've ever read. Like, this is truly like life changing. Like, completely changed like the way I wanted to tell stories and like what I thought was possible."
I mean, like reading it again in the hardcover Just just a few minutes ago, finishing it like an hour ago again. I was just like, God damn it! How many times did I cry reading this book? It hits so
many.
hard every time.
Oh,
God
yeah, I
damn
can
it.
tell you the exact page where the first tears well up.
Well, and I
like
definitely want to get into that, but the thing, and I don't mean this to be disparaging. I don't mean it to be, rude or demeaning to this book, because again, D-Dubs, DWJ, Daniel, whatever you call him, does absolutely amazing stuff. But when people are asking me, like, what should I read? What should I pick up? And it's like, okay, well, do you like music? Yeah, I like music. Do you have any interest in like Pokemon or, Pocket Monsters or anything like that? They're like, yeah, I kind of liked it as a kid. It's like, dude, you got to read Murder Falcon for, again, not to demean this at all, but it is heavy metal Pokemon. Like you get to play amazing instruments, and your ability to play, your ability to create music, like levels up the power of your avatars, of your characters. And what I love too is you hear the heart, the emotion that Manny and Kev experienced. Like there's so much leveling up that occurs because of the growth of Jake and what he goes through in this book. And that directly impacts Murder Falcon, or Murph, as they call him for short.
Yeah, dude.
In the book, and it's just awesome. I'm watching Kev flip through the pages, and if you go back to issue 1, you get this amazing action scene. You get some dialogue to start to introduce characters and give some background to Jake. So you get Johan, who is former best bud. He's the one that gets the mastodon, and like the bass guitarist for the band. You get Nate, who is an older gentleman who runs the music shop next to where Jake lives. You get what is it? Is it Peggy, who is the
the diner waitress,
the diner with tattoos?
Yeah,
dude.
that
She
was
is
what
like
I wanted to call it. That's the first
diner
time I
waitress
noticed it.
ever.
Was this read through actually? Just because that's
Oh,
really the
really?
only panel you get it is right here. That's it. You can get a little bit here, but it's just her reaching over with the coffee. She's also jacked, which like shout out to artists drawing just jacked women. We got a few of those in the chat here.
You see her 3 or 4 times in the series, and they're all seen. There's 2 scenes in the diner, and there's 1 scene toward the end. That's where you get to see Peggy, and she's this ancillary character. But when you think about the people that hang out and care for Jake, like that just gives you so much more color. And she doesn't give as much as like Nate does, or Johan, who Johan's with Jake and Murph throughout the entire book. But again, you start to build these characters, and when you go to the first 2-page splash in issue 1, it is just what I think 80s movies were back in the day. It's Murph and Jake sitting on top of the minivan drinking Spud Light because of copyright, so they can't drink Bud Light. They're drinking Spud Light. And there's this gigantic monster sitting in the distance across from them, just showing what this next big evil is in the background. And it just, to me, that sets up like these 2 opposing forces. You've got the family and the heart, and you've got the big thing that they're going to have to overcome in the end. And there's all these flashbacks. And I have to say, like, I had my own thoughts and feelings when they start to show flashbacks of Jake. You see a wedding with a lady, and you get to see these hospital scenes, and you're like, oh no, what happened? Like, did he lose somebody? What's going on? It starts to build this backstory that's slowly revealed issue after issue. I think until issue 4 is when we finally find out what's really been going on. And so there's not this not just this lurking evil in front of you. There's this mystery that's building as well, and just the layer upon layer of story. With the characters, with the big bads and with these flashbacks. So again, Kev, you were talking about the writing and how he breaks some of these norms. Is that norm breaking, layering this much just within one issue? Is this just a masterclass? What is this?
I mean, in terms of writing, well, one, just to highlight the sequence you were talking about, like the 2-page spread of them here, which I had up on the stream for a little bit, but just them sitting on the van, they're singing the Judas Priest song together. You see this like joyous celebration, and they're dancing and drinking and having a great time, and then you intercut these flashbacks of just it's a suddenly jarring color shift. It clearly feels like isolated and empty, just the way with the negative space in each panel. Like you really do, like it's just cold, and like it's that feeling is just so perfectly captured when you're drunk having a good time, and then the sad comes and creeps up on you. And you know, like, and it's just like, holy shit, like I'm still running from something, I'm still not dealing with something. And the way he just perfectly captures it with a page with Judas Priest and some memories. And it is crazy. Oh, we got good old James in the chat, I'm assuming.
Hello.
Yeah, that's James. What up, James?
What
So,
up, James? I also do want to briefly
the-
call out good old Noah Funky Flashman, his comment about, I think we're going to see a lot of people copying the way he draws violence. I think so, but I think that's twofold. I think one is just super dynamic with the fisheye lenses and the warping and the speed lines. It's amazing, but also like he's ripping off manga. Like he's just doing the manga thing, and manga is also insanely popular with comic readers, but young people particularly. So you're just going to see a whole wave of artists just exclusively influenced by manga. Like you talk to like comic book shop owners, and like Viz, the manga publisher, sells more books like than any of the big two, Image, anything like that. Like manga is insane. It's crushing us here in the US.
I do want to say on top of that too, like James Herron was indeed like Daniel Warren Johnson's art hero for a bit too. So he's taking notes from James Herron, and he's directly going to manga with the action lines, with the action. You can see it in the way he animates. I mean, looking at that page you're on right now, Kevin, with him swinging back his arm right on the right page. He's about to crack him right in the face, right? That's like the anticipation shot, right? And then boom, pow, then that happens. You know, there's just so much buildup that happens in manga. And then James Herron's doing that, Daniel Warren Johnson's doing that. They're all taking notes from these guys, and it's something to take note of too. Like, there's a way to do comics, and I mean, manga, they figured it out, man. Like, let's keep taking notes from them, because they're also diving into genres we haven't like really explored a whole lot of. You know, even Mobius has said this in past interviews and stuff when he's talking to people. So it's just something to pay attention to. And I know, like, with how much inspiration, or how much Daniel Warren Johnson is selling, how much James Herron is selling and stuff, they're definitely going to have an influence on the next wave of artists coming in. I mean, they definitely have an influence on me, 1,000%. I will definitely
agree, 100%.
Yeah, credit them for a lot of like what I draw now, especially with their dynamic shots, the way he's lettering on the page, the nasty gunk coming out of the enemies and stuff. It's it's a lot of fun.
This onomatopoeia here, decapitated, just as Murder Falcon picks off the head of one of these
from manga. Yeah,
it's so good. And like the little subtle things, the MF on the guitar with the falcon head as like the headstock. You know, you got that beak there. It's so many little things where you like rereading comics just kind of just like reinforces.
It's like, damn, I missed that last time. Holy shit, you know? It's great. You always find something in this book. It's so good.
And like I tend to like when I read comics, like getting into the writing, like I tend to blow through things the first read. I'm just reading like captions and dialogue, and I'm really just taking in the story, and like it's very infrequent that I'm actually like stopping and just staring at art. But when I read Dan, I have to stop and stare at the art. Like it's so frenetic, and it's so like your eyes are bouncing all over the place with these speed lines. Like he's knowing he knows how to guide your eye across a page really well and keep a flow going. But like truly, like there's so much visual information and so much detail to get lost in that it's just easy to just kind of stop and stare, which is like when I know that I'm like truly like lost in a book, where like I just can't even like read the next page because I'm still like tripped up on this page, you know. It's so good.
I want to throw out and go back to something that Manny said. You know, James Heron, you threw that name out there. If you think the monsters and everything that Daniel has in this book are just so cool, and you want other big monsters and whatnot, go check out Ultra Mega. Ultra Mega.
We're going to talk about that on stream eventually.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
Giant kaiju fights. And that's what I get a lot of the kaiju vibe from the monsters that Daniel has in this too.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. It's so good.
Because the nice thing is with this one, it feels like Daniel is able to create a world but keep it small. They only go to a few set pieces, a few set locations. In this, after after issue 1, you know, you got to start to introduce the rest of the band. You find out Jake's the front man, right? The lead guitarist. So you got to go and you got to find the other band members, which is where they start to go in the next issues. But that's really after you get the band together. They kind of keep things tight and neat, so you don't have to remember all these different places and all these different things. You get, as Kev showed earlier, you know, the heavy with the giant hammer and anvil, like that comes back. So all these things he's able to then build upon and re-reference without people having to keep all this in their head. It's such simple, easy storytelling to really build this world. So again, it's not like a Star Wars where you have to remember, you know, 1,500 planets and all these different races and things like that, right? And he does this in 8 issues. I mean, again, that's another thing that I just find so impressive. I was sharing a number with Manny and Kev earlier. 202 pages to tell this story. To me, that sounds like a ton as an artist, but again, 8 issues. I think the longest issue was 28 pages. But just absolutely amazing that he's able to keep things such a close network and really focus on the characters.
I mean, he really nails, like, looking at one of the issues with was with Jimmy doing like the drum solo. Oh my gosh, like when she just goes crazy, it's just like Jake is ready to start like playing as a band, and then Murph is like, no, sometimes the drummer has to do a solo, and then she just goes bonkers, right? And he really just, Dan captures that moment, you know what I mean? Just like the silence, and then you just feel, you can kind of hear it in your mind. I don't know, maybe I'm just biased as like a drummer, right? But I can just hear it in my mind, just like, you know, like especially seeing like was it Across the Spider-Verse when it just opens up in a drum solo. I was like, all right, I'm already crying. This isn't fair.
Such a good point.
Yeah, sometimes you got to let the drummer take a solo and the jetpack, and then you get like it's panels like this where like me and Manny are like, again, I'm gonna keep bringing up this point because I keep studying this book for this explicit purpose, but like me and Manny are doing a book about musicians, and I have to ask like it's an activity that requires so much movement, and movement that's not particularly exciting. It's very repetitive. So to like to infuse that level of energy into things, and like the way he has the motion blur on everything, and everything's got impact and speed lines, and everything is super dynamic, and you know, even just with panel sizing and just the way he's able to kind of carry that energy through. Like this is a drum solo that's covered in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 panels. You know, but you're like, oh my god, and then you get these feet kicking in for a 6th kind of accent panel, the dugga 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 dugga, which is just like a perfect, you know, onomatopoeia. It's so succinct. Like that is so impressive to me when comic artists can just do this kind of stuff. Like that's the hard shit in comics, is like taking really complicated ideas and imagery and boiling it down to its simplest elements. Like look at this panel here where you can see the impact hits on every symbol and like head, you know, and
you see the impacts happening like in real time basically, and then the wind. Oh man,
and like the squash and stretch on all of her like limbs and proportions, you know, like just like working so well. And I also want to just run back on Jimmy's story too, because like it's all of the drama of Jimmy's life is like told in 2 pages, which is just like talk about efficiency, you know. It's really like like, you know, you have a little bit of the backstory with what happened in the band on this page, you know, but that's kind of like the whole band story. And then it cuts to Jimmy, and then it's like, oh, now we're in Jimmy present day. You know, she wakes up, get the light turning on, kind of that cold, lonely isolation of waking up in the middle of the night. And then it's just this page with the dad. She puts on the jazz record to kind of jog his memory back. And then boom, we're back to kaiju fighting. Like just that quick. And like that level of efficiency is crazy to me.
You know, as you pointed out, like you get that backstory about the band breaking up. And again, you're putting these pieces together. So since he's introducing that third member of the band, he's going to show, you know, what the breakup really looked like. You still don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think they've given you everything yet. You just see like, you know, Jake was really kind of a jerk when all that happened. And then you get the story of Jimmy, and you get to see her and her father. There is such a heartbreaking moment between Jimmy and her dad at the end of this issue.
Oh, dude, yeah. It's like, oh man, everything's tying together. It's like, oh, damn it, I'm crying again.
Which is like, which is also to drive home the theme of this book, which is that the pain and the suffering and the sadness is relenting. Like it is ongoing forever, and it will continue to keep hitting you even after these glorious victories. You know, her dad says, "Oh my God, that was amazing! Your drumming makes me so happy to hear." And then, who are you? And it's just this like devastating hug. She's alone in the panel on this side of it. You know, the band is watching on, and like, just like that idea that like you have to keep playing the music, you have to stay strong and persist despite all the shit that life is going to throw at you, and that this just like unrelenting sadness and anxiety and grief, like there is a path forward. And that is like what absolutely destroys me about all of Dan's books, but particularly Murder Falcon, is that
I'll read it.
It's not sunshine and rainbows, you know. It really isn't just like cool action the whole time. All of them, Do a Powerbomb, Extremity particularly, they are about grief, loss, pain, sadness, depression, anxiety, all the bad things in life, and still
especially
finding
Extremity.
hope. Especially Extremity. That one's specifically about being an artist and like the world crumbling around you, and still finding value in expressing yourself through art, like because that is what we are meant to do. You know, that is like so beautiful. Like that is what brings me back to Dan over and over again. It's how do you infuse that wicked 80s genre and corniness and goofball cornball garbage with such a real meditation on like the meaning of art and life. Like truly, it's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Well, and if you think like what we've ran into so far is already an emotional roller coaster, like to me, issue 4 is an emotional roller coaster to me. The highs and lows in issue 4 are crazy. And there's something that as we get into issue 4, there's one line of dialogue that I actually have written down. Of course, it comes at a cliche, which I'll get to. But if we want to get into issue 4, you know, I think, again, it just shows where Dan can take a story.
Yeah, and it's where you finally get the like rug pull of what happens to Jake, you know, and his wife Anne. Like the whole time you think that he's the one dealing with grief and loss, but actually, for the spoiler alert for those who haven't read Murder Falcon, Jake is the one who has cancer, and he's dealing with his own mortality, and he, in his grief for himself, he pushes everyone away. And that is like the core point, is that finally this is what he's like being shoved in his face quite literally by the Veldar, by Magnum Chaos, He's telling him to give into the grief and to give into the pain and suffering because that's all life is. And ultimately, he chooses to stand strong, to fight back, to shred. And what happens is we get a sea of ox that just gore through Magnum Chaos and the kaiju, and it's just this this is one of the best spreads in the book.
Can we show the irony of this? What is Nate playing?
He's got the cowbell, dude. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
More cowbell.
Yeah, and I think there was like a little like insert of the cowbell. Yeah. Right before the page turn. What a great little tongue. This is so good, especially with this
cowbell.
The size of everything else, like the size of this kaiju, the size of this panel, the size here with the cosmos and the planet and foam and lightning and nightmares streaking through the atmosphere, and then you get one little cowbell and boom. Like, look at that page turn. That is so sick.
Yeah, so talking about just before I get to the line that I think is fantastic, talking about instilling humor into this, I think at the very beginning of issue 4, you get Jake and the band all back together, and then all of a sudden, like, you see this couple picnicking out on the beach, and I think like they say "babe" about 5 times before interrupted by a car chase. Like Jake and the band are running away from the kaiju, but it's like babe.
Babe, what those noises? Babe, don't even worry about it, babe. Government's got that all under control. But the explosions, babe. Oh, and then like the explosion happens. Is oh my god, babe. It's so good. This crash, the fear, their eyes are like bugging out of their heads. Like, it's so good. It's so fun. Oh my god. And yeah, but like you were saying, that scene of them in the diner, that one little bit of respite is just so nice. Like, these are the moments, like we were talking about earlier, that characterize just how fun and like the feeling of being in a band in true closeness with your friends. I love Murder Falcon Murph saying shred-tastic. It's those little
there's
things.
a whole lot of friendship in this book, man. I fucking love it. It's just so heartwarming. It's great.
And
absolutely good.
We haven't talked about it yet, but I just want to give a brief shout out to all of the chunky boys in the world and in the chat. Jake being a chunk, little tough man, got a little meat on him. I mean, just that silhouette of a protagonist. Let me try to find some good like ones, but it's just.
But he's got the gorgeous locks.
Representation matters. You know what I'm saying? Like, our boys with bellies. It goes a long way. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah. And like, and
the legs to the belly.
Yeah. And like, one thing that just like I love, that I was talking to Manny about this last night when we were kind of getting ready for this stream, was just how even when nothing's in motion, everything is in motion. Like this entrance pose, there's speed lines and motion blur on just a guy standing still.
Yeah.
It like goes such a long way to like really infuse every page and panel with just like energy.
I'm actually reading it right now. I got the digital version, but it's like maybe on page 3 or 4, and he comes out of his van. Jake comes out of his van, and his hair is just like flowing.
I mean, one of his heroes is Akira Kurosawa, like the guy that does those amazing films, and everything in the background or everything, like every single scene that's happening, there's always something moving, So he's taking notes from directors. Yeah,
Kurosawa never has anything out of focus. Like if you look at his shot composition, like everything is always in focus. So when he puts stuff in a panel or in a scene, like that's intentional. That's all meant to be there.
Yeah, it's so good. Like he's taken the notes of everything, and he's taken the right notes of everything. You know what I mean? It's so great. And it just applies to every single like panel, every single page. Like Murder Falcon's banner just always like flowing in the wind. Jake's hair always flowing in the wind. Like there's always either like paper or debris or something like going on. There's always some visual interest.
That page is the one I was just talking about, Kevin.
The which one with the I brought metal? Him here?
Yeah.
I mean, it's iconic. I don't need
Yeah.
weapons, officer. And then he swings the guitar around. I brought
Just
metal. Like
imagining being the cop in that situation, like, what are you? Stop it! No, go away!
And then there's like a great shot, on this panel where he's muttering under his breath, 6 years till my pension, 6 years till my pension.
Yeah,
And he's like cowering in the corner, little tiny cop man right here.
yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
great. And like,
By the way,
go ahead, Sam.
I don't know if you guys have ever read comics on Comixology or Kindle now. It's actually pretty cool. It's like cinematic. So it zooms in on each panel, and then as you scroll through, it kind of like does a cinematic animation that switches to the next one.
Yeah, no, I definitely there's definitely merit to reading comics digitally. I do read a lot of comics digitally. There's just something about like when I'm reading a comic book, there's a lot of like this where I'm holding the book like right up to my face and I'm like
for sure.
tilting and looking
Yeah.
through the light and then like really messing with the page turn where I go, how did he get from A to B? And I'm constantly kind of just like manipulating it, which
Yeah, it's very intimate.
yeah.
It's very like the physicalness of it is just like being in your face and getting close to it. Sucker for that. That's why I keep buying more books and I don't have more. When I don't have room for them, I still
Yeah.
keep buying more books.
But no knock to digital comics. This is a true story. My like re-entry into comic books when I was in probably middle school was like right after Civil War and like Old Man Logan had come out, and I
Oh yeah.
bought them on Comixology and I read them on my iPod Touch. Like that is like one of my formative comics experiences, which is a horrible way to read comics. But I was always in the car with my dad on long road trips and just like reading through, Civil War, all like 800 pages of all of that saga on an iPod Touch. Horrible way to read comics, but no knocking it, because if I didn't do that, we wouldn't be talking right now. So
Right, exactly. So
as long as people are reading comics, I'm happy, truly. But you
honestly,
should go to the store and buy comic books.
support your local shops, my friends.
That's right.
Screw the Jeff Bezos or the fucking whatever, the Lex Luthor of the world. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Though we are streaming on a Bezos owned platform, so Daddy
Right.
Hi-Fi, don't get weird about this, okay?
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna end up getting this physically anyway. I just wanted to start
Please
reading
do.
it now, but it's
Yeah.
like nothing beats also the experience of going to a comic book shop and just rifling through.
What I love
Yeah.
about Murder Falcon is that it's truly one of the books where you slam that on the counter and you're like, I'm buying this today. The guy behind the counter or the other person, any gender,
Yeah.
behind the counter will like light up and be like, oh my God,
Dude,
this book
when
is
I-
amazing. You're going to love this. Like, read everything he's ever done, basically.
I bought this book. So I didn't get the hardcover in New York, but when I was in New York, I bought like the soft cover. I went to a comic shop in New York at the time, and brought it up to the counter, slammed it on the counter like you were saying, and the dude looked at me and was like, "Is this the only one left?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." And he was like, "All right, I mean, you seem cool. I'll let you have it, but dude, if this dude wrote a book about a rock rolling down a freaking hill, I would buy it."
Totally. Exactly.
Hey Kevin,
Well-
you passed a page earlier. I'm looking at it now. It's the one where Murder Falcon is about to punch the monster, and he says, "Metal will destroy all evil." Those fucking speed lines. What the fuck? Like, how did he do that in the fifth?
Seriously?
Aren't they gorgeous?
Did he just ink that by hand? I'm sure he like penciled it.
Yeah,
first, but-
no, if you like when I go into like the kind of process pages, like all of that back matter like here, like literally everything is planned out to that level and
Yeah.
inked in that level of detail, lettered on the page, just
Dude,
straight
watch his
up.
streams, man. Watch his streams. I picked up a lot of notes from him just watching his
Right.
streams because that
Friday
that
with
pin.
T-Dubs.
Yeah, Friday with T-Dubs. Look it up. Like the thumbtack technique of him like getting a piece of tape, putting the thumbtack in the piece of tape,
Yep.
and then putting it on the page like that. I stole that from him. He was just like, "Yeah, this is how I do it," and I was like, "Okay, got it. Thank you,
So
teacher."
cool.
And like
So-
look at just like the amount, like, and I'm not the artist in this room, but just the weight of different lines
issue-
across this particular
yeah.
spread, like the
Issue
smudging and the fat brush stuff, and
Wow,
then these little dainty
That's got
lines.
some real like Kim Jong-gi vibes to
Right?
it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's
Well, and you get so much. I think everybody's mentioned several of the creatives, especially from Japan and those overseas influences from manga. I mean, when you get to issue 6, when they literally say we're going to Tokyo,
Yeah.
and you spend like the last several issues in Tokyo, you get it just shows all the loves of Daniel's passions. Heavy metal, plain awesome, music, manga, anime, Tokyo, and then big military vehicles. Like issue 8, there is a giant aircraft carrier with just stacks of amps and speakers all on the front. You get the helicopters, you get tanks, like there's just and it's all the stuff where he's just like, I just love drawing this. And it comes through on the page.
Yeah. You can feel it, man. You're just having so much fun.
But we were talking about, I had mentioned the leveling up piece to Murph. And so in that issue 4, when you see the cowbell scene, you end up finding out that at the beginning of the issue, Jake takes off his wedding ring and throws it into the lake. Well, just, by coincidence, this battle has taken place like right where he had done that. And so during this massive clash of cattle and this giant kaiju monster, it's unearthed the ring, and when he puts it on, like that's when you get Murph's first like level up.
Yeah.
And again, we talk about the onomatopoeia.
Megaform.
Megaform, dude. Oh my god, it's so awesome. It may be on a nose, but it's so rad how he does it. It's so good.
Yeah.
You can like hear the guitar riff from like Tony Hawk Pro Skater games. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Well, and Johan even says it, like, after you see Megaform, I'm right there with Johan. Like, Johan's my go-to character, where it's just like, dude, that's badass.
Yeah.
Just literally.
And it's like after he megaforms, he's just always levitating. Like he shoots up into the sky to megaform and grows like the wings out of his back. And then you see this like God ray, boom, megaform.
Yeah. And what else happens? What else evolves, guys? Pokemon. Like, I'm not lying. This is heavy metal. It's awesome. It is absolutely amazing.
And then you just get this, like the payoff of this spread, which is just like crazy with the machine guns firing off his shoulders, and you just see it splitting in half. Like this is just so cool. Like
he's even got the perspective of the wings right. He's got the guns. He's got the splatter. He's got it all, baby.
The feet, like Murder Falcon's feet throughout the book are like the one thing I noticed, where they're just kind of like warped and squished and stretched and just all over the place. But it's like one of those things where it's don't get self-conscious about this. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's fine.
Daniel,
I say, Ben, you've been comparing this. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, Ben, you've been comparing this to Pokemon, but I think this is actually way more like Digimon. Like Murder Falcon in this panel specifically looks like he could have like walked out of a Digimon cartoon like directly.
definitely. Like, hey guys, what's gonna make our Digimon thing hip and cool with the kids? I don't know. How about heavy metal? It's like
How about miniguns? How about 2 miniguns?
And a metal arm with a curdy arm with pipes.
Yes.
Yeah, that big pipe
While
coming
Kev's
out.
on this page, this is the one line. Now, Magnum Chaos is like this red, squishy, big bad that he'll be fighting to stop in all of it. God, there's so much on this page that I absolutely love. But you get the cliche line from him, like saying, "Why do you still fight?" And then you get Jake saying, "Because I have a hope for something better. Music has given me a glimpse into what I am and what I can be." And I don't care what your passion is. Take that word music, insert your passion into that line. And that is how I feel like I need to live my life. And anybody out there that's having a hard time, that's just like, dude, what can pull me out of this? Like, that is, I feel, the best mantra to live by. I have hope for something better, and this has given me a glimpse into what I am and what I can be. Like that, like, oh man, I'm getting emotional just like saying that aloud.
But this book does.
Really, man. Yeah.
Going into the onomatopoeia stuff, You get like the whir of the Gatling guns in the top left-hand corner. You get the rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Not only that, but looking at where the monster is like having bullet holes in it,
Dude,
you
yes,
even
and
get
it's
like
Blood
the
splurge.
Yeah.
It's just awesome. You get all of this. He puts it all on the page.
Yeah, he gets everything. Dude, David Cho must love this book, dude. I mean, I swear.
He better. Damn it.
I think I saw a post of his on Instagram where he had like a big old signed like original Transformers piece or something.
Yeah.
Dude. I know Dan put a Pizza Man, David Cho's
Yeah.
Pizza Man. I know he put Pizza Man somewhere. I think he put it in Do a Powerbomb, actually.
Yeah, it's
He's
in the
somewhere there.
wrestling arena thing. Like,
Yeah, it's so good.
yeah.
Sorry, I could go into each and every one of these, but again, after this big, amazing kaiju fight, then you get back to the heart of it at the end of issue 4. And again, I think in 3 pages, there's one word in a dialogue bubble, and the rest is just
Yeah.
Daniel.
This page right here, this breakdown of him waiting outside the front door, it is like, because honestly, like we talk about page economy and storytelling, like with what he's done and frenetic. This is the same panel 5 times, just basically with Jake waiting and just giving the reader and Jake that time to breathe, and just really like this is the turn of the whole story.
Yeah.
The strength it takes to go back to his wife and apologize and really own up to his mistakes and show what kind of man he's trying to be here. And you're waiting with this suspense for 5 panels. Just where are we? You think you know where he is, but you don't really know, and then when you get the page turn, that glorious catharsis of just the hug and the silence, the embrace, just them here on this panel is just such brilliant framing. The highlight here from the porch light at the bottom is just so goddamn good. Oh my god.
His drawing economy, I'll say that. I mean, just like black it out, man. Like, holy smokes, you don't need to draw all those freaking like pieces
all
of
the
wood and
lines.
stuff.
Yeah.
You can just black it out and boom, there you go. Let's put the spotlight right on the characters. It's amazing.
And looking at my notes, like issue 4 is the longest issue. It's 28 pages for this, and that's where you guys have the hardcover book. Now I want to go buy the hardcover because I have all these in singles. And I'm like, I gotta have the hardcover. But to your point, Kev, he takes an entire page sitting in silence. To deliver this when. From an artist perspective, heck, if I can cut down 2 pages and still show a full arc, like I can justify being lazy. But it's just he has this in his head. This is how it should be. We all need to breathe. We need to really focus in and hone in on this moment. And I think it's all the better for it.
Well, and it's it is justified. Like, that earned character turn of music has given me a glimpse into who I am and what I can be. And you let the actual kind of meat and potatoes of story fall out. What does this mean for everybody else? Let's take a couple pages to assess the situation, because you couldn't immediately go to being out here. You got to give it that little breath first. And then where is Jake after making this massive character realization? And he's here with himself. Like, that is the whole thing. Like, relying on other people and reaching out to other people is important to Jake's arc, and that is fundamental to his growth, was reaching out for help. But ultimately, reaching out and relying on other people is so that he can be the best version of himself solo here. This is the most important.
It's so good. I mean, also I want to point out, these are not photoshopped in. Like, these are all redrawn panels.
Yeah, you can see the shifting of the wood here.
Yeah.
Like, the angle slightly shifts when the door starts to open.
Yeah. I mean, all that. And the markings on the windows, they're all different. The markings on the wood, they're all different. Like, everything. So he's not doing shortcuts here. He's drawing his heart out on these pages. It's so good.
Yeah.
And you even get a subtle shifting on kind of the lighting here on these wood panels. Like, Spicer's coloring these all individually too.
Yeah. 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 God, what a guy. What a fantastic team, honestly.
Yeah, and this marks the halfway point, right, through the whole story.
Yeah.
So another huge emotional beat halfway through.
Yeah, and then
God.
It
just
kind of shows his command of the medium, just like, because everything else is super loud, super fast, and then the contrast of that is what makes it powerful. Like
Yeah.
if it's all one note all the way through, you never get those emotional payoffs. There has to be that like period of rest. It's
Yeah.
not just about like delivering story information. It's about what is the most appropriate way to compose those panels to get
Yeah.
that emotional beat.
well, and
It
totally.
makes it work so naturally too. Like it doesn't
Mhm.
feel forced, you know what I mean? Like so it's just like a natural thing, you know. There's this team building moment, then there's a self building, then there's like more team stuff, then self building, then it's I love this guy.
It's amazing. No, like, and like, there's like, it's the command of the medium thing is real because like there's a natural rhythm to which a person is going to flip through these panels. You know, when you see a bunch of choppy panels, you're almost going to read them faster and you're getting through all this. There's kind of less visual information per panel to kind of get through. But when it opens up and it just stops, you stop. You don't just go, oh, okay, he's standing still and flip the page. You go, oh, he's standing still. I got to take this in. What's going on? And you start to notice every subtle nuance into the shift in posture, him waiting, that anticipation, that anxiety, right? And then you get the payoff of just this last image, which is really, this is the feeling that this issue is supposed to leave you with. It's right here. It's not all of the shit that happens in these sick kaiju Digimon level up fights, like.
Yeah. Well, the contrast like goes another level. It's like the content itself. It's the most mundane possible subject matter. It's just a house, like a regular ass looking house. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's like you look at the background in that shot on the previous page, and just like the night sky and everything. But that's like a night sky that you could conceivably find in the countryside. But it's not wild ass crazy monsters fighting each other. It's just like this is his like real life that he's kind of returning to and has to come to terms with.
And just this like
What?
wholly unnatural gradient color, this just like sunburst orange coming through the light in the house is just so good. Mike Spicer, ladies and gentlemen, holy shit!
Let's round of applause. Round of applause for Mike Spicer, everybody.
Wow, just wow.
We talked about this, and I know Kev, Manny, you guys pick up this book and read it quite often. This is one because I don't have the trade. I don't pull out the individual issues. I did leading up to this, and I was trying to take all my notes and create this at least some talking points that I didn't want to forget. But just as we're going through this, I would love to see what is it? What is it where you look at like the peaks and valleys and sound in a sound wave?
Waveform.
Waveform. Dude, the waveform for this book, I would absolutely love someone to depict, because again, we just talked about the intense battle with the kaiju and everything that happened in this issue. Then you, like you said, you turn this page, you see this house, you can almost envision like the crickets that are chirping in the background, like
the lake.
It's
breeze.
quiet, it's calm.
And it is that exhale. It's that, oh my god, like dude, that was intense. Like, what now? And then you get this moment, and he even carries it into issue 5. Like issue 5 doesn't start off with not with a massive cacophony of sound. There is, I feel, some rumbling, so you get this nice break, and then there's almost this thunder that you get. So in issue 5, you're introduced to the fact that this tear in the world that Magnum Chaos has created is allowing these things to come in. So you're getting like the sound of lightning and thunder, especially as like the Veldar, which are the monster things, the kaiju things, start to stampede and kind of make their way in, all the way up to where you finally get like the show of some of the other people that can use this musical power to summon creatures. And dude, I was like, all right, Brodicus and all their creatures are awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, but trying to find the name of the band. Is it Whisper?
Whisperwood.
Whisperwood?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Whisperwood and Helmdar.
Hjelmdar.
Oh, dude, like such amazing creatures. And
Dude.
again, just how much can he fit on a page? It's insane.
Right? This page economy is insane, bro.
Well, I mean, yeah, seeing huge jack dudes in corpse paint like play like their black metal and just shred like Veldar into oblivion is one of my true joys, like my true like ecstatic ecstasy.
Dude.
Just good
One
God.
of my favorite.
Look at the drums flying and
Yeah.
just comrades, no, like this panel, like
Yeah.
Oh, again, heartache, like complete heartache.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna flip back.
And
to
there's
this
something that as we
spread.
get into this issue, I don't want to forget to ask, Kev and Manny about something, because you guys may know more as we get to like them using or tracking down like the next item that they need. So I don't want to rush it, but when we get to the cemetery, I definitely have a question for you guys.
Okay. And I think like talking about pacing too, going off like, well, the one thought I had while we were kind of talking about the end of issue 4 is I'm actually curious about release and if this was like a break in release at all or if it kept going monthly from here. But just
Let's
like
see. So he started releasing issues in October of 2019, and issue 8 came out in May of what did I say?
2019.
October 2018 was the first issue, and then May 2019 was issue 8.
Okay, so that's pretty straight through, just month after month. Like, I don't read comics month to month very often. Like, I just wait for trades. So, like, this moment here must have just been like okay, we got there, we did it. Like, oh my God, kind of like a perfect moment to like give you a break rather than ramping you up, which is kind of what issues 1 through 3 do, is like we're going to keep ramping, get you excited. But this is like a true piece of closure. And so like with that breath, it does give you the opportunity to like completely shift to a side plot and introduce a side character that's going to kind of come in and influence the story from here. And like taking that opportunity to do it with this band is just great. Like it's just such a smart pacing choice. Also a very slick way to world build and show what the Veldar are doing across the whole world now that this calamity has actually come to Earth. It's not just in, substitute Chicago, wherever the book takes place in the first half with the band. Like it is truly like, no, this is global impact. And we've got this Swedish, Norwegian black metal band. I think they are from the north of Sweden is what it specifically mentions in the book.
Yeah.
But
yeah, if there's anything I can convince Sam to digitally sculpt for me, it would be Helmdar's his summon, his avatar, which I don't think I ever saw a name for it. Did you guys?
I thought there was a name. Hold on, let me find
That's
it.
with an A, right?
It's when they introduce him like way later on to the band, and he kind of comes through and saves the day.
He like crashes through the hospital like window or whatever, and he's like, "You're Jake, right?"
I'm making us jump ahead, so my apologies.
I am Hjelmdar, the
Sam,
sole survivor of Whisperwood. I want to join your band. That's all it says.
Sam, like that would be a dream come true if you could do that.
Wait, how do you spell?
Aslaug.
I can't.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
I can't see it. I'm blind.
It's like I haven't seen you in ages, man. Like, fist bump.
Can someone drop it? For me, I'm gonna try to find the. Also, maybe I can flip forward a little bit. It looks pretty sick. By the way, it's been really cool to hear you guys' commentary as I'm reading the comic. It's really
It's like the director's commentary.
I'm at the part where Johan gets the base, and then they talk about how Jake like bailed on them on their last game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The show with
and
the
that's
record
something,
execs.
too, we didn't really go into it, but there's also that cool part of somehow it's either these crypts or these catacombs or there are these areas hidden around that have these, powered up these mythical instruments that each one ends up getting. Like you follow Johan and their adventure to get Johan's base. You end up coming across, or they talk about, Heindar talks about like them finding the instruments for his band, the microphone, the drums, everything like that. So you just get these really awesome, like even more heavy metal areas where these things are kept. And that goes off also to like the VHS tape that they find in this crypt in issue 5. So, and I don't know, is that like just a heavy metal thing? Like these things are found in like dark places. Is that a heavy metal thing that
No,
I'm not catching on to?
No, I don't think that's heavy metal. I think that's more like, I think that's more of a world building choice to say that, like, because like Murph, like through the book, kind of implies that there's this world that we aren't privy to, and like the shred detector showing them the hole in the wall in the record store, and they punch through.
Yeah.
Which I'll have to find the panel, but just like the record store employees just absolutely are hilarious. Just such a great little touch.
How could you say Saint Anger's a good album when you work at a record store?
Yeah, like just like throwing the shade
That
on
was-
Saint Anger. I wish Ben Roberts was here to talk about that panel.
Yeah,
he and I
man.
were
That was
talking about
back
Saint
towards
Anger.
the end of towards the end of issue 2 is where you get them punching through the wall
Okay.
and heading down to the catacombs.
Yeah, right here. You can't say Saint Anger is a good album. A good. How
do you work here?
to say that? Yeah. And then the guy's
Perfect.
like, and that guy's an eagle with the metal arm, and then like the contrarian is like, I'm pretty sure that's a falcon, Steve-O. Like just that, like, which I'm kind of looking at this long-haired Steve-O right here, kind of looks like Trad Moore. I wonder if there's anything to that.
Maybe it could be him, man.
I guess we'll have to see if we can ask one of them this year.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that'd be fun. That'd be a lot of fun. Because Dan puts himself in this book in that bonus issue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that B-side.
Yeah.
Which
when he's
we don't
in
have
the shop.
Yeah, we don't have to
It's like,
jump
you
to
can't
it.
play Limp Bizkit in here. I imagine that he's playing Limp Bizkit, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that
that
B-side?
lids.
Is that short story in the hardcover? Is that
Yeah.
in the hardbound?
Yeah,
Those
it's an
days,
hardcover.
it's like kind of part of the back matter.
Oh, dude,
Yeah,
those days.
no Enter Sandman, no Pentatonic Riffs, no Californication, Last Resort, Freebird, Limp Bizkit. What's the bottom one? Dave or the Zeppelin 1 or Dave Matthews. So good.
And also, like, if anybody is interested, again, go over to Daniel Warren Johnson's Daniel Warren Johnson channel. I think it's not on Friday with D-Dubs, I don't think, but there is a 2-part that he talks about kind of his writing process and then laying things out for those days 8-page short. So if you want to just hear him talk about like what goes through his head, how he structures it, like it's out there, so you can definitely find that.
Yeah, 1000%. Check his stuff out.
What a guy.
Yeah, and then
But
also we're looking at this page right now, Kevin, with the. I feel like it's a Cliff Burton statue.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
I was trying to figure out who that was.
I'm thinking it's Cliff.
Well, that
Okay.
doesn't. Well, he's playing a guitar and not a bass.
Is he?
Yeah, it's got 6 tone knobs on the headstock,
Oh,
and then
okay.
that bass shape, because Cliff always played that like fat like Fender P bass, right? Like it was.
Uh-huh.
I'll have to pull up a picture to kind of like remember that,
Damn.
but I couldn't tell if this was someone specifically. I also had that thought when I was rereading it.
Like, is that Cliff? I don't know what that is. Like, yeah. So
The
I don't
guitar
know.
shape, like that guitar shape, makes me think it should be someone specific, but
Yeah.
I couldn't. No guitarist really came immediately to mind. But I'm sure if you ask Dan, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's the dude from Slayer or whatever," and he'd have an answer.
You know exactly who it is.
Yeah. So I know
But-
Lemmy's in it 1000%, but yeah, wonder where that guy is.
See,
right, so I think
this
you
page
just-
makes
you
me
just
think
told
it's
me
Cliff
another-
again, though. This like shot of him from further, like this angle. I don't know.
Yeah, because I don't know. I saw like when I looked up I looked up Murder Falcon just to see what would pop up on Spotify, and Image had a thing on there, and I think Orion popped up for Metallica, and I was like, huh. Is this when Orion would pop up right here?
I mean, I could see Orion also popping up like through the end of page, panel, like issue 4. That's pretty spacey. Pretty.
Yeah.
Who knows? I wonder. I do, because I never talked to Dan about black metal, but I wanted to just see where this came from. Like, obviously, it's just kind of a mashup of the Norwegian look.
Yeah.
But I wanted to know if he was actually into any of that real satanic cult black metal stuff.
Maybe.
By the way, I found the page with Homdar on it in my digital copy, so I've bookmarked that for now. It would be really sick to sculpt for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Only for
Yeah.
you, Ben Hill.
I also love, just going back to this 2-page spread of him screaming, that it's just grah. Like,
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I was looking at that last night, and I was like, I immediately thought of just like and then I actually saw the G, and I was like, that makes so much more sense. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
And you get that quick, like, again, pacing and economy, grabs the mic, inhale, like just that sharp breath, and then just
Mhm.
the amount of energy after this little break. Just
I can hear the blast beats happening right after. Line would love this page.
Very cult.
You guys, Halford is so cuddly. Sorry, I'm
Yeah, Halford, the mastodon, is just he's so cute. It's like, how does this fit into everything? But
he has 2 little piercy tusks, but otherwise.
well, you get the heavy metal reference for Mastodon, and then you get the Rob Halford.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
Oh, I see the connection.
it's a
Yep.
twofer.
Yeah,
And then tell me, guys, the heavy metal guys, because Jimmy's her avatar is called
Alexar.
It's a basilisk named Alexar. So I know Basilisk, that's a heavy metal band, right? So what is Alexar? Is that another famous heavy metal musician?
I have no idea. I was like, maybe Kevin would know this. I don't know. He's my music encyclopedia. So
If I had to take a guess, it's probably just a guitarist in one of the big bands. I'm not that acquainted with, like, I don't know all the members.
Well, number one, how dare you? And I don't want to derail everything, but I was just curious, right? I mean, I get the basilisk reference, like that's not lost on me, but just I was curious because I was like, oh, the names typically mean something when it comes to these things. So especially with Halford, I mean, that one was pretty overt. So, but going back to where we were in the story itself, they head down. We're guessing, who the statue is at the crypt, but they find a VHS tape, which again, if Ben Roberts were here, I know this hits like home. He absolutely loves like VHS.
Yep.
And so they pick that up, and the cool thing with that is if Dan were to do another 8-page short, I would want him to focus on that time in between when Jimmy and Johan and Nate are getting this VHS tape, and then running back into Jake and and Murph and Anne, because they're off doing their own thing, while Jake, Murph, and Anne kind of build and show more of that human dynamic in issue 5. So
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
I need to backpedal a little bit because I'm gonna have to find it. But seeing the page, like the whole sequence where he takes off his bandana and wraps it around Anne's face,
yes,
and takes her to the
That part
heavy
is
and
so good.
yeah, I mean, what an amazing sequence. I mean, just also this aside, and beer, hell yes, my kind of woman, to new friends, like. But there's a specific sequence.
Here.
I think it's early in the book. I think it's might be issue 2, but it's the first time we see. Oh, yeah, it's right here. We see Murph's eyes for the first time.
Oh yeah, that's a good catch.
Yep.
I didn't realize that. Yeah, it's the only time you see him like,
And
his
then-
eyes open.
Yeah.
One of the few. One of the very few.
I just love that because that is one thing I was just kind of when I was rereading it, just the fact that his eyes are always closed.
Yeah.
They're just always covered by the bandana, and he always looks sick. But even in these, just the close-ups of his face with closed eyes is such a crazy choice.
I feel like I saw something to where when Tyrell Cannon and Dan were talking about character design, and then Tyrell's talking about doing turnarounds, and then Dan's just like, "Oh, I just want to figure out what looks cool in front pose, basically," and I figured out the rest later on. And Tyrell's like, "What?" I swear I heard that before. Maybe not.
Bruticus recorded tracks.
Yeah, that's Dan.
Oh yeah,
That's Dan.
yeah, that's Dan. Yep.
Dan
just
is
made
an
all that
avid
stuff.
guitar player, really into making music. He was gonna make a whole lot more music with the Bruticus name, but then turns out drawing comics is a full-time job.
Yeah, it's weird. It's crazy.
You can't always get to it.
Yeah, and that
man.
was something we
It's
didn't
great.
even talk about in When You See It, because at the diner towards the beginning, that Peggy actually says are you making any more music, and holds up her phone and shows the Bruticus is on, she's like, I'm listening to this hardcore right now. And the cover art for Bruticus is one person holding up a guitar and another person holding up a katana. I'm like, how freaking awesome is that?
That's all you need, man. That's it.
That's it.
It's beautiful. God, freaking love this book.
But you
I mean,
do,
look at
you're
that.
pointing out here, Kev, you do get some more insight into the heavy. Somebody, Murph references and talks about his creation being done by the voice for the thousands, or the voice of the thousands. And that comes back later on in the book as well. So there's some really, again, he's not going to hit you over the head with world building, but he is going to add and layer in depth here and there just to not overwhelm you.
Yeah, and that's actually a great point because the whole beginning of the book is super frenetic. It's just I'm Murder Falcon. I come from the heavy. Those things are Veldar. We have to kill them with the power metal. Start shredding as fast as you can. And then you're just off to the races. And then they're like, "How do we find the base?" And he's like, "With the shred detector, the most convenient plot device."
Yeah. The comic
And it
book
pops up
logic.
out of his
It's just
robot arm.
it's just boom, 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 just to get you to the next place. In comics, you have a lot more room to really toy with logic and just whatever can get us to the next page efficiently is good enough. And then, the balance is slowing down with these pages.
In terms of sequential media, comics, there's this control of time that is so cool.
Oh,
you,
dude, yes.
you can play a little bit with it in movies, right? A little bit, and I loved how Scott Pilgrim was kind of trying to do this meta thing where it was very meta awarely trying to do a comic thing in film. But with comics, is theoretically it's this conversation between the reader and the artists, right? There's this kind of, the artist kind of tee things up in a way to suggest a passage of time. The reader can then choose how they move forward with time. Right now, I just got to I'm already teared up reading this, by the way, the scene where they find out about Anne's cancer diagnosis. And the
Okay.
panel is just
It
Jake
would not
holding,
be-
and it's just black. And
Oh,
the
It would not
doctor's-
be Anne's.
Yeah.
It's not Anne's cancer diagnosis. By the
Well,
way,
he's reading it for the first time, Ben. We've already talked about
Okay,
that,
well,
but he was good
somebody-
enough to not pay attention to us spoiling the book. Come on.
well, I thought we mentioned
if
that
you
earlier.
haven't
I
been
thought,
paying attention earlier.
Never mind.
you
yeah. I thought we already spoiled that.
No, but I love those pages, Sam. Specifically, like the voice getting quiet, like kind of just turning into scribbles while he's learning about the diagnosis, and they
Yeah.
get smaller and smaller in the frame. It's so fucking good.
And my willingness to linger on it is like it's partly Daniel and it's partly me. If that makes sense, like because you could theoretically just pass right through this and be like, okay, cool, that's like a story beat.
Yeah.
But for me, having like dealt with loss in my life, I'm like it's very meaningful, like to kind of meditate on that. And he invites that, right? Obviously, because he's lingering on it 4 panels at least. But I think that it still takes the viewer, like if you're a kid reading this, like you might understand some of the emotions, but you haven't lived life enough to like really know. For those of us who've dealt with bullshit, like this hits maybe harder. So it's this you can do this with any other medium, but there's something really beautiful with comics where like you can really quite almost literally freeze time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally.
Just choosing like the best moment basically to depict it, and I feel like Dan does that every time, really.
Well, it's also like this is this flashback is in a hospital, which is the most ugly, brightly lit, fluorescent hellscape.
Mhm.
And what he does is put everything in shadow and limit all colors. Like all the colors are drained here. It's just one wash of this kind of purple blue, like, and then heavy shadows and then this tiny isolated place. Like, oh,
I could just imagine him inking that, I assume, with like a really thick brush or something like that. By the way, Ben, but now I'm curious about whose fucking diagnosis that was. What the fuck?
You'll
That's
find
why
out.
I screwed up. That's something too. I think it helps the muted color because it does signify the fact that these are flashbacks. You're learning about something that's happened before the current story. But it really makes me curious now. I just need to make a list of questions that we're going to take to Dan. Like, what does he think about hospitals? Because I don't think he likes hospitals very much. As you read through like several of his different books and scripts,
Who does?
Well, right. But to your point, hospitals are typically bright. There's bright fluorescent. I can't say the word. The lighting is bright.
Bright eye hurt.
And he's able to add that depth. And I swear someone needs to do a analysis of just the sound in this book. But that's another space where it just becomes quiet. The dialogue is, like you said, very intentionally non-verbal. Like he shows that there's talking, but it's muted, it's muffled, you can't make it out. It's just background noise, and it just dwells on that silence.
Yeah.
Pacing is everything in a comic book, and I think the reason we kind of keep focusing on it when we talk about what he's doing every time, like, is because you have no control over pacing in the way that a reader is going to read a comic book, technically, right? Like they're going to flip through it as fast as they want. They can go panel to panel to panel if they're reading it digitally. There's no control of the flow. So you have to force them to either speed up or slow down with what they're doing. You have to draw their eye to places that they shouldn't look yet. And that's like the fucking wizardry of comic books.
Yeah.
Guys,
I mean,
who's the drummer? Why is her storyline sad?
That's Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Yeah, Jimmy's the best.
Yeah.
But I'm just like looking at this page with that giant, like this crazy. It's basically just silhouette. Like you squint your eyes a little bit, it's all you see, right? And just looking at the timing, like we're talking about pacing, this giant piece of time, and I could just see the camera going in. If it was a movie, it just spends a lot of time on that piece. Zooms in, they're walking across, boom, they see the guy in the robe, they're still talking, boom, still talking, and then they're taking a little bit more time to do with the pacing with Anne, and then putting the his headband back, and the pacing just it fits, right? And I want this to be an animated movie, but um,
We can
you know,
only hope. We can only
right, exactly. Anyway, we'll continue.
But like Ben was saying, the stuff that
invincible treatment.
Yeah,
I like. We mentioned this before, but like, Extremity is what I feel like as this book. 12 out of 10, one of my all-time favorites. Extremity feels like it should be so much more than it is, and I mean that in the most loving way. Like, I'm not the type of person ever to say I think something should be longer, because I really appreciate efficiency and like brevity in any sort of narrative storytelling. But Extremity just set itself up with so much world building, so much potential, and then it was like, and by the way, the story's over. And I was like, I thought there was going to be 5 more trade volumes of that. Like, I was so ready to keep reading. And I think it should be adapted to be longer.
We need to do a long form conversation on Extremity, especially like
when they do the Panzas edition. We'll talk about it.
Dude, yeah, that's a good idea.
Keep it timely, because like transparency into like the kind of rationale behind starting this kind of live stream podcast sort of vibe was when they announced Criminal. I wanted like the Amazon show. I was like, well, now I got to go reread Criminal, and I was like, wait, we should just talk about Criminal, because I could talk about Criminal endlessly. It's just one of the best like comic series of all time, and like like I could just go off in the way we're doing this, like with Criminal, and I was like, okay, well, I want to do that. And then me and Manny kind of started spitballing. It's like, well, let's pick a comic that we can talk about and try it out, try this format out. And of course, Murder Falcon was one of the first ones, because it was literally sitting on my desk while we were talking about it. But
yeah, it was right there.
Yeah,
it was right.
So I think timely things, like, we'll try to stay relevant. Obviously, we'll probably still backpedal, because Manny and I are like cavemen when it comes to like what's actually like good and new. Like, I'll just be like, dude, I just read this book that is so sick. Have you read it? And they're like, yeah, that one that came out 10 years ago. I'm like, yeah, it's sick. You know?
Yeah, we live in caves, we hibernate. But I mean, also, like, thinking about Extremity and thinking about Murder Falcon, obviously Extremity came before Murder Falcon, and then Murder Falcon comes out, right? And Dan is sort of experimenting with a different style, not entirely, right? But you can kind of see it going from story to story. And he's simplifying his lines. He's, talking about page economy. He's putting a lot less lines on the page. He even talks about this in a few interviews as well, because at this time, I don't know if it was, I think it was his first kid was, or his second kid was born. So now he's just like, I want to spend more time with my family, so let me spend less time on the page or something.
This was 2018. Yeah, it would be his first.
His first kid. Okay, so now he's thinking about family time, and he's like, I need to get these pages done. So you can kind of see that, but there's also a lot more energy to it, yet it's still Dan at the same time. So I just think that's a fun thing to think about too when we're looking at these pages as we go through, So anyway.
And I just want to throw this out there, because I think it's something we haven't really dwelled on too much, but that relationship between Anne and Jake, you can tell how much love Dan has for his family, especially his wife. I mean, his wife has shown up in comic books that he's done as well. He writes strong women in his books.
Oh yeah.
Like, the women are just as important, they're just as pivotal and crucial as the male characters. Which I think is absolutely.
Well, I mean, honestly, Murder Falcon and Space Mullet are the only ones with predominantly male protagonists. Extremity and Do a Power Bomb, and even Transformers. Like, the dynamic is inherent to having the woman there. Like,
yeah.
By
the way, I was wondering how they were going to do the drums for Jimmy, and it's so sick.
Oh, it's so sick.
Right?
they if you're listening, it's on jetpacks.
Yes. Yeah, if this becomes an audio-only podcast, there's a drum riser with jetpacks soaring through the air while a sea serpent basilisk gores through a giant kaiju crab monster, and it is fucking rad. It is so cool.
Also,
We love it.
when they go to get her and she's taking care of her dad, I was like, oh no, are they gonna leave the dad? And then I see Murder Falcon pushing him in his wheelchair. I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's killer.
Well, and I kind of was, I was a little frustrated. I remember when I read this the first time because you get to see them finding all these, all the musical instruments, and the one you don't see them find, it's just like, ta-da! Here's Jimmy's drum kit.
Yeah, I
And-
noticed. I was like, did I miss some panels or something? But no.
No, page
And that's
economy.
what I love about that 8-page short. Those days, he tells
it.
that story in those days. So that 8-page extra is how they find Jimmy's drum kit,
Perfect.
and it ends up oh god, I we'll save that to the end. Those days,
Yeah.
talk about me crying again, like in 8 pages, mind you. He didn't even need 24. He didn't need 202. 8 pages, he had me crying. So.
Wait, what are all of the like Digimon called in this universe? What are they called again?
Beldar.
No, that's the
Those are the
Those
bad
are
guys.
monsters.
I was gonna. So I just got to the scene with Alexar, which is Jimmy's whatever, and I was just like, maybe I should just do a whole sculpt series where I sculpt all of these.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yes.
That'd
And
be
then I
crazy.
just have to find someone with a 3D printer, and then
Right.
that will be.
Seriously.
Oh my god!
So rad.
Sorry,
Oh,
where
man,
are we in the book again?
We were well, right now. I'm just flip past kind of the whole story with Anne going and seeing the heavy,
Okay.
and then what I forget where the thing is.
Oh, this is where we lose Nate. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's also where's the I love this exchange. Like she's like, "What? You're leaving already?" And he's like, "I don't have a choice, Anne. They're my friends. But what about us? We don't have." And then Murder Falcon like kind of looks at her. She's like, "What can I do?" And then there's just a smile, and then boom, she's just like whipping the van around. And
Yes, strong women.
and
She's
you know
driving.
what to do, and it's this big shot of
So
all
good.
of this going on. They're going in and saving the band from the crypt. And there's more fighting and splat and guns and braka 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 braka. Shred, shred, shred. He's got like the 8 arms coming out doing the Doctor Strange thing while he's just absolutely shredding on the guitar here. What's funny is that his hands aren't even on the guitar. That's like one of my
Yeah, they're
favorite parts. There's just 8 arms around the guitar showing how hard he's shredding. He's shredding so hard he doesn't even have to touch the guitar. Like that's how metal he is.
His ideas of like combining that, like, let me tell this in a comic format, but also let me make it exciting, and this is how I would play a guitar, or this is how I would want to see a guitar played in like animation or comic or whatever, you know what I mean? And it hits that exciting moment, you know what I mean? So he puts those like 8 arms on there. He puts like so much movement on there, like Akira Kurosawa, you know what I mean? So just nails it so good.
Yeah, the multiple hands with the fingers flying here, shredding.
Yeah.
It's so good. And then of course, like just breaking the panels with the lettering is just like a Dan classic. With the tuck 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 tuck.
Let's also point out the van is a character, as it's like on 2 wheels at every time you see it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when it's moving, it's always in the air,
Careening and tilting and twisting, and again the squish and scrunch of the wheel, the rubber on the tires.
Even Frank Miller talks about that in his Sin City books. It's just like the car became a character, and that's when I started like finding the fun in drawing cars. Dan is doing the same exact thing.
Tell
The
that to Sean
dragon
Gordon
wagon.
Murphy.
Yeah.
Oh man, we don't even need to go into Sean. His mastery over cars is amazing. Cars and
Yeah.
horses.
Yeah, exactly.
Gorgeous.
Hey guys, do you happen to know? So Johan, like on his jacket, he has his band's name, Chemist, who's a Colorado doom metal band. Do you guys know the connection?
Oh no, it's just Dan is a fan.
Yeah. Okay, I figured it was something.
Yeah, in this panel
yeah.
here, he's actually got a bolt thrower patch on the back of his jacket, which that's another death metal band. That's where Tyrell's album cover comes from. Let me find that in the back matter.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's this one. That's basically like a Warhammer piece that's also bolt thrower. Yeah, this shit.
Yeah,
is
you got
rad.
Power Trip because Johan's T-shirt is a Power Trip T-shirt.
Yeah, and this would have been coming out like maybe when did Riley Gale die? Maybe that was 2020. No, it might have been right when Riley Gale died, 2019, 2018. Someone's gonna have to fact check me there. I don't feel like googling it. But the lead
Manny-
singer of Power Trip.
Manny
Yeah.
and Nate know that I'm like Power Trip was like my entire last year. You guys got
Yeah, we
me.
were all just listening to it so much.
Yeah.
Was
Oh,
it 2018? Hold on, I'll look it up. I'll look it up real quick.
Yeah, rest in peace, Riley Gale. By the way, I've heard nothing but like great things about the guy. I never met him, but like I knew lots of people in bands who played with Power Trip, like when they weren't one of the biggest metal bands.
Oh.
Yeah.
August 24th, 2020.
Oh, it was 2020.
Yeah.
What a blur of time. From just 2019 to
seriously.
now, it does like it doesn't feel like we're almost halfway through this decade. You know, it's crazy. But I digress.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, you're right. We are. Ugh.
Gross.
Yeah.
Well, and so we lose Nate, right? Nate has some weird Veldar thing that's like feeding off of his brain waves or whatever that we find out. We go to another hospital, and this goes again, Kev, to what you pointed out. His hospitals are muted colors, which I think is great because it really allows the rest of the characters to just pop off the page.
Oh yeah, for sure. 1000%.
Totally. And even
So
like when it is
big
clinically
on
white,
Spicer.
it is like all the whites are dulled down with kind of greens and yellows and
Yeah.
browns, like to just soften all of that. Like,
Yeah. There's one
Great
thing
job,
I know, with coloring, you never want to use 100% white, right? Because
Yeah.
that's mainly the gutters, that's mainly the dialogue balloons. So you kind of want to just mute it a little bit in the background when you're doing coloring with comics and stuff. So, but Mike,
You keep your
man.
mouth shut and you stay away from the way I color my books.
when it's a full color, okay.
When it's full
Looking at
color.
the inking in Murder Falcon is just like I think black hair is so cool because it's like the opportunity for cool, interesting shape design. Because there's like several panels where like Jimmy and Johan's hair is it's literally just black, but it's
Yeah.
so dynamic, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
it's just like the silhouette is so sick.
It's fantastic.
God, it's so good.
Just
And then this
sick.
just like what feels like an Iron Maiden reference here. Just with
Yeah,
the zombie
A
Eddie.
giant zombie.
Yeah.
Dude, Kev, give us a reading of the poem that's on that page.
With
The
one
poem's
epic
awesome.
blow, the sound will call an army of metal to fight for all. An awesome force of musical warriors all dead. From the earth they'll come, ready to shred.
Dude, that is metal.
We're not worthy.
And I do like. I was looking at the sequence where they actually are watching the VHS tape, and the tab is there, and I will like
Yeah.
I like almost had half of mine last night to go immediately pick up the guitar and like try playing
It's
through
like, what
this
is that?
just to see what
Yeah.
that is. Like just from guessing, like I just couldn't even like tell you what that was gonna exactly sound like. But it's lots of like weird little pentatonic tritone sort of things, so it's gonna sound very Sabbath. I can just tell by looking at it.
Yeah. If I understood guitar, maybe I could be of help. But I looked at that and I was like, a guitarist has that one.
Hey, am I a furry if I have a crush on Murder Falcon? Like,
No.
how does
No, he's a hunk.
You just
He's a
love the
hunk.
right things. You love the right things. That's all.
Look,
he's
Dan
perfect.
drew him to be very fuckable, so that's
Yeah.
part of the design.
That's his fault, really.
Not just the shape, but the personality, right?
I can see Dan saying that. Yeah, that's right.
Like, that was my intention, actually. Thank you.
Is it
And then
good?
that sequence where his arm turns into a key is also
Just
so
like, whoa, what happened to my
sick.
arm?
And again, it's not just some regular skeleton key. Like it is a metal, like just awesome
metal
looking
key,
key. It is
literally.
so amazing.
And then just
Yeah,
like letting
it
that
is literally a metal
personality
game.
of Johan fly through, where he's just, I'm gonna lose my mind. This is so cool. Like,
He's us. Johan is
He
us, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
an army
is
of metal
arcade.
zombies, shred legends that have passed away. This could be our way, our chance to fight back. Like, so good. And it's very much like, and I don't know, maybe it's just because I just like watched all of the extended cuts of Lord of the Rings like a week ago. But like just them talking about the army of the dead is like exactly like the army of the dead of like, you know, the lost army of Gondor or whatever when they go and
Just hitting all the notes, real.
yeah,
Really. No
just
pun
and
intended.
you can't talk about metal without talking about Tolkien a little bit. Like it's
gotta
it's
sprinkle it in there.
foundational. It's foundational.
Oh no, his arm. Sorry, I'm like waving.
Oh, and I just noticed in the corner of this panel, it's super tiny, so the camera is not going to pick it up. But he's got an Opeth patch, just more metal bands getting a shout out. Yeah,
Dude, I never realized that.
yeah.
Dude, nice,
I just,
nice
like,
catch.
Whenever I read a comic like this, I'm just like, I would be happy as an illustrator to like have completed one of these panels in like 60 hours. And it's just like, it's like to be a comic. I mean, you guys know this, but like to be a comic artist requires like you just gotta like lean into whatever your process is for expressing something visually, right?
Yeah.
And what one cool thing about that is like you talk about style and things is like it will happen so organically and so quickly because you kind of don't have the luxury otherwise to like sit around and be like, how am I going to pick it? You're like, okay, I just need this guy to be here, and then he's punching this guy, and then you're just like, how do I express myself?
Yeah.
I got a small taste of that with Inktober. Obviously, it wasn't sequential, it wasn't a series, but in terms of the cadence, right? Because I was like, all right, I got a few hours to just get the single drawing done. What is the quickest way to express myself? And it was like, oh, actually, I can get away with a lot. You know, obviously, it wasn't like technically that great, but over time, if I were like to keep doing that, I'm sure I'd get better, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just like what I like about it is this idea of, and I really feel this with comics more than any other visual medium, is it is truly about visual communication, right?
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to be clear, it's not sanitized either. It's beautiful, or it can be beautiful as well. But this is where art is weird because visual communication and beauty are actually linked. It has to evoke something, right? So if it's stunning or it's inspiring or it's dull on purpose, like all of those are relevant to the communication, and a very artful artist can communicate all of those. But the point is like, I just like this idea because with illustrations, I sometimes get too precious, right? I want it to be
Yeah.
fucking epic, and then it's like, you know, actually, Sam, you are actually quite capable of expressing visually. Maybe just like go for it, and don't be too precious.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of panels in here too where Dan is sort of not being correct with the human anatomy, but he's getting that panel done. What's more important is the story behind it, right? There's like that page that we were talking about. There was like the 5 panels of Jake being at the door. Like the anatomy isn't correct on some of those panels, but man, it works. You know, the emotion hits, and that's what's really important. It's like finished, not perfect. I mean, that's like a Jake Parker thing, right? But it also that hits home with me, and I think that's what helps me get to the next page, get to the next illustration, get to the next project, is keeping that in mind. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
also,
Progress over perfection.
One
Yeah.
thing that
There's a weird thing. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Nate. We haven't heard from you in a bit.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just gonna say there's a weird thing that happens when you're reading comics, where as long as like each character is like relatively on model, you just gloss over the imperfections, and it's like the establishing shots sort of set you up to see all the cool things about the character and the character in their best kind of light, and the artist will spend more time on that. And then you, as you're whipping through, you know, the different pages, you can skimp a little bit on the detail and skimp on the anatomy, like Manny's talking about, and the reader's not going to, you know, necessarily even notice that unless they pick through it really carefully.
yeah. I mean, a lot of the time it's really like the artist not having enough time to do the page, but you know, we that's another reason.
Yeah.
No, I'm saying like it still works. Like
Yeah, exactly.
it still works even though you don't have enough time. You never have enough time. It's like
Yeah. And I think that like one thing that I heard, and I think it was Kelly Sudaconic talking about like Jorge Jimenez doing Wonder Woman Historia stuff, was
Ooh.
like the importance of drawing acting, like, is something
Yes.
that kind of is like very underappreciated in comics. And like I think this page is actually a great like demonstration of this, like this moment where they're, you know, this quiet, this respite, this like love that they're sharing in this like very fearful moment is like so touching. And like they call on like the OGs of this kind of craft, like your Toth and your like Ramita Senior and people like that, who just like absolutely nail this. And like this is something that Dan does insanely well, like that we haven't even mentioned once this whole conversation.
Like
Just
those
another
eyes,
thing.
man. Yeah, he just captures that moment so well. I love that shit.
And he like, I love that he does it here, kind of this like these scrunched face lines. Like look at the angle that his head is like down, and like he's getting the smushed kind of double chin fat neck thing going on here. But like it's so sweet and like serene.
He was actually drawing music right there.
I love that you talk about that, Kev, because it does. This scene here does give us some more humanity from Jake as well, because now we've had all these different revelations about what's happened to Jake, what's happened to Anne. They're trying to rekindle, but Jake just says, you know, in all of it, like I'm not ready to go. I'm not ready for this to be over. An incredibly human moment.
Yeah.
And she says nothing is forever. You know, again, just tying into these absolute crazy themes is like the sadness and the pain will persist, but the fight has to continue. But eventually, like the good and the bad, it all comes to an end eventually. And like, I mean, this book literally, spoiler Sam, is that like it's a book about mortality, like too, which is crazy. We'll get into the, I mean, good Lord, we've already been talking for 2 hours and we haven't even touched on, I knew this was going to happen. But like, you know, what ultimately ends up happening to Jake, and we can kind of start picking up the pace, I guess, in terms of like issue content.
So join us tomorrow for part 2.
By the way, in chat, Joe, I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing the name correctly, but Joanne.
Joanne Lee. Joanne C.K. Lee. Joanne.
So this is a cool discussion. My friend did a creative writing session tonight, and we talked about a lot of similar focus about not it needing to be perfect. Just got to get something out there and refine what's out there. I mean, I don't need to tell you guys, freaking Manny and Nate G over here have been like my therapists on this, but like, yeah, you know what's really funny is like when I actually lean into good, not perfect, I make some really fucking good shit because I just let myself go. And so it's the irony is that I actually make things that like are closer to perfect if I just don't care about it being perfect. And
just letting go. You know, you just do it, and then you get lost in the sauce, and then you're like, oh, "Wait, I made that."
What Ben said basically. By the way, I'm getting my friend Lily. I'm talking to my friend Lily, who's on our MT Wells' server. And I think I just got her into Murder Falcon because we're talking about it right now. But also, the whole Jimmy subplot just made me kind of cry a little bit quietly in my room right now. Because for those who don't know, like I take care of my mom who has dementia as well, and so it's just like hit really close to home.
That's the power of the Dan. Dan is.
Plus, I'm a percussionist. I haven't played set in forever. I used to do like symphony and college marching band. Percussion, but I want to play set, man. I want to get back into that.
Yeah, get back into it, dude. I dare you.
They have those things, the electronic ones.
Yeah, dude, I've been thinking about getting me some too. A little off topic, but yeah, I've been thinking about treating myself to them.
I mean, it's definitely not off topic to talk about how playing music is important. Fundamentally a part of this book, and like, you know, to like tie it into like kind of why I read this book all the time and what it's like, what my own work and what me and Manny will have coming down the pipeline is really like, you know, it's a book about heavy metal and demons, much like this book, but like this book kind of showed me that like it's not a book about heavy metal and demons. It's about friendship and like the purity of like how there truly is nothing fucking in this world better than playing music with your friends. Like those are the true like moments of peace and joy, and like the rest of the world entirely melts away when you're just making music with your friends. And that's like so amazing. And
Oh,
Dan
like this
captures that
captures
here.
that.
Sorry, Jake's diagnosis. Sorry, I just got to it.
Yeah,
No, you're
it's
good.
Jake. Jake is the one who has like a brain
Oh,
cancer.
fuck
It's
me,
never like
that's
explicitly.
fucking-
Oh,
But I
that's
feel like this book
devastating.
captures that the friendship thing with playing with friends and everything, and also Scott Pilgrim. You know, like after watching that show over the weekend, I was like, damn, I want to jam, dude. You know, some noise. You know,
I told you guys
So-
like tonight I was going to talk about contract law in another server, but I kind of don't feel like it tonight. But I was gonna work on my piece, and I haven't really been feeling it. If you guys know, like I haven't really been. It just feels like I want to make stuff, but I'm feeling a little off. Like my creative reservoirs, like depleted. But man, tonight I just fucking just got me juiced up. Just because of what Kevin, what you're saying is like if I really reset to zero and I think like okay, if you were to remove expectation, if you were to and like given the life I lead, which is like pretty intense and pretty shitty sometimes, like what is like the purest thing you'd want to do? And I was like, honestly, I just like want to make cool shit. I don't even want it to be good. I just want to like add something more than what is here, on the planet. I know it sounds like really highfalutin, but it's actually quite mundane. It's just small little things like fucking like just make an origami thing. I don't know, like it doesn't have to be anything.
100%. My phone just died, so the face cam is gone now.
Oh, no.
I had my phone plugged in and charging, but I guess like the rate at which the camera was outputting, was faster than the battery could charge. But,
well, and I want to shout out. So Jawank Lee, that's my boy Javen from back in Indiana. So thanks for coming on here and hanging out.
oh, nice. We love
Thanks
when
for
the
coming, my
homies
friend.
come out to hang out.
Yeah.
What
So
would
we
you guys
finally
wanna
get
do?
to
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
we finally get Helmdar hanging out with the band. Gonna bring
Yeah.
the band together.
The backstory,
So
how
cool.
they go into the heavy, and how they find these instruments is super sick. I also love it. This is the one, where we get Anne and her power, and
it's one of my favorite
she
pages.
saves. She's he saves the microphone from the exchange, and then I'm gonna fast forward a bit. I mean, these fights.
Oh, dude! But the
So
horn. What is it?
far.
The horn of death. What is it?
This thing here is so fire.
Those teeth.
The horn
Sick.
of the dead.
Horn of the dead.
Unbelievably cool. And then I just want to fast forward. This whole thing of Anne kind of getting through her thing, and then he gives her the microphone. She's like, I can't sing. He says, whoever said you had to sing?
That's one of my favorite lines in this
Yeah,
book, dude.
and
I was
then-
like, yeah.
When she has this back and forth, the memories, and I love that he uses this format throughout the book. There are several pages where he does this kind of vertical back and forth, like present moment flashback, as it kind of sits with the character, and then bam, this 2-pager is, and she's the wolf, and it's just this body posture here where she's bending over and leaning into it, screaming with her whole mind, body, and soul is so powerful. This is such a fucking good page. Oh my god.
But I know you wanted to speed through this, so I'll just keep what I have to say very brief. During that exchange between Anne and Helmdar, like Helmdar immediately has that, I have to protect Anne. Like she's, soft, she's not strong, she can't take care of herself. And there is just one panel full of dialogue at the bottom before he hands her the microphone, so just on the page before that, where she's talking about everything that she went through with Jake, not because of Jake, right? This is a strong woman. She is there to be that pillar for Jake, and things not going the way she wants them to, and the whole time, like her entire inside, she just wants to scream, but she just had to sit there and deal with it.
She had to be the
and
strong one in this
leads up to
situation.
what you said, Kev, like just awesome, dude.
Yeah.
Finally letting everything out.
Yep. And it's a fucking wolf.
Yeah. What Helmdar says to her, you're not seeking to save your life. You're saving the life of your friends and family. And besides, who said you had to sing?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, and you talked about like the body posture of her when she when the wolf is summoned and everything. The tears coming down her face.
Yes.
When she inhales. Oh my god, it's so cathartic.
And it's like, and
it's
like
the little things, man.
Yeah. What I think is an interesting choice here is not like when we had the first like metal scream, it was that gra, that very like guttural black metal scream. But here it's literally just scream. Like it's just exactly what it needs to be. And she's just, it is very literal, which I think is really sick.
Yeah, and it's awesome that it goes like off the page, so it implies that like the force is like continuing like onto into the nether realms, like into the ether out of this book, out of this world. It's fucking great.
And like the energy, like literally like breaking apart the bridge too, and like coming off of her in all directions and shooting at it's just
Dude, I'm telling you, man. You get the people that were involved with One Punch Man on this thing. I'm telling you.
Oh, this is where I get the feeling of Akira, right?
I was going to say the same thing.
There's so much Akira vibe, and we get more Akira vibe in like issue 7. But this was my first feeling when you just get it the tentacles, like the weird worm-looking creatures just being shredded, and I get that all that again Tokyo dystopian feel of just these weird creatures being obliterated. So cool.
Sorry, it was just I'm glad the face cam came off because I'm like literally tearing up just like reading this page.
I want to show emotion.
Now we're getting into Helmdar's last stand, right?
Yeah, you have chosen to continue to yell into the void, to defy it. I must do this too, to my last day. And this is not Bruticus's last day. And they're like, no. And he's like, for Whisperwood, for metal, for Bruticus. And he grabs the guitar and just runs straight into the fight for his last. Yeah. Let's grab is the like onomatopoeia coming off of it. Grab with the giant B, like just the grab.
Yeah.
Like it almost like you hear the sound.
And so in our haste, we haven't pointed out like Magnum's trying to get them to unlock the door to the horn. He tries to convince Jake by stabbing him quite a few times. And then as they're making this retreat, he snaps the neck of Jake's guitar, which has a direct impact on Murph. And so and that's Helmdar's like last act, is to go rescue the guitar in the hopes that they can get it fixed and save Murph.
Yeah.
And like the subtle onomatopoeia when he breaks the guitar, just kind of bleeding into the speed lines, just like crack, is so good. Yeah, it's
like a gunshot. Like that crack is like a gunshot, and the way that Murph like lurches. Like it's just he's been shot in the back or had his back broke. It's crazy.
And then ultimately, this is what leads into us meeting the Japanese orchestra, the Tokyo Philharmonic, here at the end.
Which I didn't catch a while ago. I didn't catch that the boat driver was the guy calling the orchestra for a minute. I was like, wait, is he calling the bad guys? And I was like, no, he's on the freaking boat, man.
Yeah.
And Taka looks so cool. I love the fact that like Taka's dress coat is unbuttoned and you get it kind of furling, billowing out like a cape.
Yeah.
I also love that he keeps changing the patches on Johan's jacket, and here it's Racer X instead of Bolt Thrower. What it was before.
That's one thing you'll catch in was it Ghost Fleet? There's the assassin's T-shirt that keeps
Yes.
changing. Yeah,
That is always really good.
you just brought that motif on right on over to Murder Falcon.
So then we're on the boat to Tokyo, right?
Yeah, man. Gosh.
And I love that they arrived in Tokyo here, and all the people are like, the legends, they're here to save us. We are saved. Shredded to Death is my favorite album of all time. Like their album is like had this far reach, which I mean, like just as like an aside is like something that does happen. Like you don't know where your art is going to reach and who's gonna like encounter it and what it's gonna do to people, and like that is so beautiful and so sick that some Philharmonic Orchestra in Tokyo is like, this obscure indie metal band is the greatest thing that's ever happened in my life, basically. That's so good.
Yeah, we've got the injured Jake, like he's finally kind of succumbing to the wounds that he has, because he's got like 3 holes in him at this point.
Yeah.
And Murph, who's kind of comatose because of the guitar. So, and dude, TMDF, the Tokyo Musical Defense Force. How freaking metal is that abbreviation? That's so cool.
That's great. That's great.
And Hitori Ito and what is it, General? I don't have it in my note. General Stapleton. Is that?
Yeah.
Get to the page if I can.
From the American Okinawa base. Yeah, I
dude,
mean,
because he's setting up. He's setting up
too.
The last issue. He can have more military vehicles. The dude loves drawing military vehicles. So.
Oh my god. And you like, I love these like kind of flashback sequences where he's kind of in his own mind talking to Magnum Chaos, and how
this is a direct link, right?
Yeah.
This is them talking right now.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, but it's also like drifting in his mind while he's like going in and out of this sickness, like it is just happening in his head, but it is like a literal direct connection. And like even in his mind with this full infestation, he's willing to like he's like fighting back with words. It's so cool. Yeah.
And they it's kind of convenient because one of the Ito that we're introduced to, she's said to be kind of the leader of the Tokyo Musical Defense Force, but her grandfather apparently is some awesome musical instrument repair guy. So they got to go find her grandfather, because they're always the best and the coolest when it comes to fixing things. And we get more shots of what kind of devastation has been brought upon Tokyo.
Dude, I mean, like, it's funny how Dan kind of like flips the script a little bit, because usually it's like the medical, like the medics, right, out in the field, like fixing up people, or the doctors and stuff. And it's an instrument repair guy in this case. It's like, I'm going as fast as I can. I'm so sorry.
It's so awesome.
But the fate of the world depends on you, man. So,
and like a
great.
brief call out to like Dan's, he uses this shot a lot in his books, where it's this big overhead kind of warp perspective shot of someone hunched over a desk, and you get all this like space in the room. You get like the towering shelves of gear and instruments and toys, and all of this, and it just adds this clutter and chaos. Like, I love that he did this in Beta Ray Bill a lot.
Yeah, he did that when they introduced Johann, Murder Falcon, and Jake in like one of the like first or second issue, when they all meet at the cafe or whatever. He does that too in Beta Ray Bill. I'm pretty sure he does that in a few other books too. But I mean, it's he's just taking things, recycling them, but it works with the story. It works, it looks damn good. So
Real good. And I think like I really like the way this issue just juxtaposes like, one, Jake's importance to the world and like the world building, but also like the scale of the story impacting the whole world, but paralleling that directly with Jake's internal struggle, like what Jake is dealing with personally, that we know intimately, is also what the world is, and then therefore we can assume that each person is dealing with that exact same struggle, that fight to persist continue on. Like, I just think that, like, showing the macro and the micro together in parallel sequence, page over page throughout this whole issue, such a brilliant touch. Like, just so effective.
Foreshadowing one of the best pages ever drawn. Just saying. Just gonna say that, you know.
That I also, here's another question. So help me remember this, guys. Next time we see Dan, what was going on in his life? Because he has like 3 different characters in wheelchairs throughout this entire book. So you had Jimmy's dad, who was in a wheelchair. You have the grandfather, who is never named, but like the grandfather's in a wheelchair, and then we'll find our 3rd character in a wheelchair before the end of the story. So
yeah.
I feel like did he just love drawing wheelchairs at the time? I don't know.
I know when before he was doing comics full time, he was working. I think he was working at a hospital, and he was basically wheeling people around right off the EMT. So I know that might have an impact. He might be referencing like people that he met. That's my assumption.
I also think that like ties into the themes of the book. Where like, what is it like? If you're in a wheelchair, you are a person who's rendered immobile, right? And like just by being in a wheelchair, you are like overcoming that immobility. You know, that is like a statement unto itself of like, I'm gonna keep on rolling despite the limitations that I've been faced with. So it's but it also very quickly is an easy way to identify someone who is sick, handicapped, you know, rendered, you know, in a poor state, for, you know. Basically, like, how do you show someone who's sick and needs help? You know, you put them in a wheelchair, give them an IV and like a, you know, maybe an oxygen tank to the nose, right? Those are universal signs of that's a sick person. And so just into efficiency, right? Like, what's an easy way to communicate that? Put them in a wheelchair. Not to diminish the impact of the image, but it's just so effective. Why mince words? Why be less efficient? Why use many word when few word do trick, right?
But also, people who use wheelchairs are cyborgs, which is
true. Centaurs.
Same thing with glasses. If you wear glasses, you're a cyborg. You've augmented.
Hey, I might be a cyborg pretty soon. Just saying. So.
Do it now. Don't wait until you're mine.
This samurai. Oh.
Dude, okay, here it is. The Tokyo Philharmonic has my favorite freaking avatar, my favorite summon in the entire book. The samurai is freaking badass. It is the coolest thing. I don't know that it has to be metal, but it is just like Dan wanted to draw a samurai, so Dan's gonna draw a freaking badass samurai. It is gorgeous. This thing is amazing. Holy smokes.
Giant sword. Look how big that sword is. It's like football field long.
Well, I know he loves Gundam. Like, he definitely is, you know, Transform Gundam, all that stuff. And I kind of get a Gundam vibe from it, but it's like a monster Gundam type thing. So nice mashup. And the giant katana blade, absolutely amazing.
Oh, 1000%.
God, and her singing this song in his ear.
Oh, God. Here it is. All right. The song that makes him go quiet in issue number 1 at the end. Your love is burning away. Feel my love going up in flames. And you find out, like, this is what brings him back. This is what gives him the spark. His wife singing it to him, because this is the song that she used to sing to him when he was sick in the middle of the night. Holy rap, dude.
Yep.
God, again, bring out the tears, because I'm about to. Absolutely amazing.
But again, like, it's brilliant. But part of what kind of, in my opinion, aids in that brilliance is the efficiency. Like, that intimacy of singing a song to someone you love when they're feeling sick is, you don't even need any of the context of a relationship, the substance of the illness. You just need to know sick, song, intimacy. And like, that's it. And like,
show don't tell.
Yeah.
You know,
communicating that level of care and strength and connection between these people just with that alone. Like, you don't even need the rest of the comic for that sequence to make sense and have emotional impact. It does with all the added context. It hits even harder. But you don't need any other context for that to be strong. You show that page in a vacuum and it's devastating. Like,
Yeah.
fantastic. And it's juxtaposed with a samurai fighting a giant alien. Like, what? That's so cool. That's Murder Falcon, right? Like that level of tenderness with that level of high concept badassery.
Badass heart. That's what it is.
It's amazing. And then the guy fixes the guitar. This is beyond a doubt my finest work.
It has
So
to be.
good. And then he shows up wheeling with the IV bag and the wheelchair and the guitar. And then he stands up.
Oh, dude, here it is.
I'm scared to die. I really am. But thanks to you, I fear no more. And he rips the wig off and then just starts absolutely shredding. And then we just get
Showing
this,
showing the
chaotic
full
printed.
effects of the chemo, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
and just like look how much like that stillness and that quiet that kind of comes from him in the wheelchair. Like, granted, it's Daniel, so there's all this frenetic kind of movement, motion blur, speed lines, but then once you get to the actual action, the meat of it, this heroic rise, look at all of look at how many angles and lines and directions and all of this going on. Like, this is bananas. Breaking panels with the sword and the onomatopoeia and, you know.
Dude. Yep, we get the next power up. He gets a gigantic sword.
Yeah, level up.
And then
Well, and of course, it's like he's playing this electric guitar with an entire Philharmonic behind him.
Dude,
So-
right? I was just like picturing that in my mind. I was like, what does that sound like? That sounds amazing. That's what it sounds like.
the Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
Yeah, exactly.
Bring me
Oh,
that
what
general, Magnum Chaos, the Veldar. They had their shot and blew it. It's time to take the fight to them. Like, what a... You know, you get the metal horns from the harmonic, like, in silhouette here. This just giant oozing corpse. Yeah. And then the grand finale. Issue 8. And that's like the
Gosh.
full gravity of this fight in this situation. The military, the underdogs, and just 4 scrappy metal kids, you know, coming in to take the fight by storm. And like, this is the scale of the fight with the, like we were talking about earlier with this aircraft carrier shot. I mean, it's so good.
Oh my god! All the speakers and amps just piled up with the drum kit and
Yeah.
the riser in the front.
The Top Gun shots of like the aircraft carrier crew.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I was thinking about that. Just, you know, as you watch like NASCAR and stuff of like people like fixing up machinery and everything.
Miking
But
up
it's
the
just
drum kit.
amps. Yeah, like drum kits and stuff.
And this is like, and like, he does a great job in like letting that huge emotional thing like really hit. Like, this is just a great like part of story structure, 3-act structure, like getting all of that emotional meat and potatoes of the last issue with the tenderness and the sweetness, and Jake finally overcoming that last bit, getting his will to fight, and his will to fight is just purely expressed through fighting. Like, that's all we got here with this whole issue is just absolute chaos, mayhem, like gore and guts and explosions and monsters and all the cool shit we love to read. Because like, we'd be lying if we said we didn't read comic books explicitly for pages like this. Like, we care about everything else. Like, I'm grateful I cried through this book, but goddamn, if you're not going to give me this to like counterbalance that weight, like,
Yeah.
you
So
couldn't
many
get me to
like
cry if you didn't give me this as the payoff. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I don't, you know, no shade to the Depression comics that win a lot of Eisner Awards, but I'd only read those books once. I'll read Murder Falcon 1,000 times before I die.
Exactly.
Truth you speak.
And I mean, this shot with Murph delivering him with wings flying in.
Yeah. It's an angel. That's
Yeah.
it. It's no
Yep.
big deal.
It's absolutely glorious. Oh, here's the Lemmy statue. Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Yeah. The Ace of Spades. Yep.
And
I love
chops.
all the candles underneath the statue too,
Yeah.
just showing the reverence that Daniel has for Lemmy.
Oh, when Lemmy died, that was a
Dude.
serious, like, I
Yeah.
remember I was with Anthony Manny, and we heard Lemmy died, and we went to the store to buy beer. It was in the middle of the night, and he just blasted Motorhead and didn't say a word, just driving to the store 1 a.m. Powerful moment in my life.
Yeah.
And here
As
we
it should
go.
be.
The final showdown with Magnum Chaos begins.
Oh,
And we
so
just
good.
get all the good stuff. And look, I mean, for an action sequence, again,
Amazing.
breaking this up into all these little panels, being really bizarre with the layout and the economy. He does not use this kind of layout often in this book, but it's
Dude,
so effective here.
Can you do a quick zoom in for me? I mean, there's so many worthy zoom in moments, but the thing about Magnum Chaos is just the gigantic eyeball that he has, and we finally get to see Murph punch him right in his freaking eye. And just the way that Dan draws that,
You can see the goo.
it is awesome. The goose. Oh, it's so good.
The hand, what a well drawn hand.
Bam. Yeah. It's almost like breaking glass, but also squishy at the same time, which I think is really funny about that panel.
Mike Spicer put that freaking little touch of goo highlight,
that gloss.
Yeah.
Bam, 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 bam on this panel here. Just smashing his face into oblivion and ha, because you can't ever fully win in a fight. That's fight pacing 101, is that it has to always feel like you could lose for it to ever feel good that you win. And that's the Superman dilemma. How do you actually make that interesting if he's going to win every fight, It happens in every comic book. And so...
Well, and I think the one thing that was lost on me with this when I read it the first time, but now I just get the real gravity. Jake was brought in on a wheelchair, and he's on an IV and everything like that, and he's played this amazing battle with Murph and fighting Magnum Chaos. But what's the one thing that he has to do to save the day? Dude, he's got to climb an enormous flight of stairs with 3 holes in him. He's riddled with cancer. He's on his last legs, and it's it had to be stairs. And he has to stop playing, of course.
And he sacrifices his oxygen tank for the final explosion.
Oh, dude, that is so awesome.
He kicks over the oxygen tank, and then Murph shoots it. Bing, bam, boom. Boom, from the big horn blow is so good. Again, getting those sounds right. Me and Manny joke about how you get those sounds, because you literally hear Manny making these noises while he's drawing. He's whoa. And this is how we talk about pages and layouts. When if Manny and I were to draw, if I wrote this page and Manny drew it, we're literally sitting there and he rolls the can over and it's bah, 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 and then it goes boom, and that is our creative process as comic creators.
Look how the onomatopoeia grows. You get the plink from the guitar, really small.
Pew.
Pow, the shot from the gun. Trick, the bullet ricocheting off the tank. Boom. And boom isn't the loudest thing on there. It's that final blow. Yeah, it grows and grows and grows.
It's thinking about the impact on each panel, and then this is probably one of my favorites right here, is what we're on right now.
Oh,
just
dude.
All these people, and I remember reading this for the first time, God, it's so beautiful.
Just restoring healing to these people with music. And the way that, he gets all of these different songs, and there's Hey Jude around a campfire. There's this, there's Don't Let Me Go, there's kids learning how to play, We Shall Overcome, the little John Lewis right here, a little political inspiration for you.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
Welcome
jungle.
to the jungle.
Who is the guitarist on the left here? In this,
Like
in
this
bit?
guy in the
Yeah,
chair.
because I know it's a musician, but I don't know who it is entirely.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't either. He calls him Jason. I didn't
Yeah.
know if you guys knew who that was referencing.
I don't.
Huh.
The horn doesn't call the dead back to life. It calls those destined to die.
And
God
still
damn.
choosing to sing into the void.
Yeah.
Boom.
Oh, and it freaking summons the hammer. Like,
Yeah.
dude, this is freaking badass. We've seen this hammer in Anvil before, and the hammer rises into the heavens, like imbued with all this power from everyone's voice around the world.
Oh, is it Jason Becker? Sorry.
I don't know.
Jason Becker.
And let me, just wait, answer another question.
Sorry. Yeah, I
Ooh.
was looking it up real quick.
And just like I love this representation of the void closing. Like it just dies down from heavy inks to just like pencils and scribbles. Just a great little touch.
Yeah.
What do they say when they cheer? Cheer.
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 Well, and here it is. This is the third shot of Peggy. We get Peggy there with Nate when Nate wakes up.
Those sick tatted arms, beefy jacked arms.
Oh, dude, she's so awesome. I want a Peggy short story. That's another one. 8-page Peggy story.
And then the representative from the heavy is of course Ronnie James Dio.
Yeah.
Put that in there. That is just amazing. Who are you?
Yeah.
I am the voice
Revealed.
of the thousands.
That was him the whole time. It was Dio.
Yeah, and we get to see what he feels like the dying is, right? Your spirit comes up out of your body. You get to say your goodbyes. Unfortunately, no one else can hear you except
in their dreams.
Well, except I love when he walks up to Murph. Murph, my time with you has been. Oh, I'm going with you. He's like, oh,
It's like it's all this emotion, right? All this buildup and very emotional moment, and then that happens, which is the comedic relief.
Oh,
yeah, and it's also you got to give him that one concession into the afterlife,
Yeah, yeah.
So good.
Is there heavy metal where we're going? Oh, my son.
Oh,
like you wouldn't believe
it.
Cheers! Just so amazing.
Beautiful.
And yeah, just glorious. Just a perfectly told story. Excellent pasting. He pasted this book together very well. He pasted this book flawlessly. Everything top to bottom is just so much fun. It's so heartfelt. It's so and the extremity plate on the dragon wagon is a little Dan Easter egg. Dan himself put into the book.
Yeah.
It's just
He does that a lot. You'll see a guy with glasses and a beard, and you'll be like, "Is that Dan?" The answer is yes.
Oh man, my favorite one. If you're looking for other Daniel Warren Johnson stuff and you want something tied in, he did a short for Deadpool.
Black, white, and red. That shit is sick.
Yeah.
And it is it's a personal, like, I'm going to write about my connection with Deadpool. And it's like, it's so fantastic. And you get Daniel through like half of the short story, which I think is amazing.
Yep.
But man, those days came at a perfect time where I'm like, oh, I love Murder Falcon. I wish there was more. I wish we had more Murder Falcon. And, for those of you that are looking for where it was printed, it was in a Skybound X issue number 3. It came out, looking for the publication date, July 2021. So I think I actually found this at Acme in Greensboro because I was trying to pick up all the Rick Grimes 2000. But this is like a short 8-page in that anthology, and I had no idea that it existed. I think I got it a year after it actually was published, and I mean, it's the Dan thing, right? Big action, amazing set pieces, like craziness. We see again just his sense of humor, and this is that backstory. Like, how did they find Jimmy's drum kit? Johan coming in, so you got some buddy action going on, and they have to fight a Veldar to get that drum kit. So
Yeah, the shred detector makes another cameo.
yeah,
And then this just 2-page sequence. That's what those days felt like, And they're just
oh my god, bringing it back.
Yeah, I just miss him so bad. If Jake was here, what would he be wanting us to do right now? And then they plug in, man. And this shot of them, like, just
God,
playing the absolute shit out of this. And, you have Dio and Murph and Jake all here. And it looks like is that Kirk Hammett right there? And Lemmy and Bruce Dickinson. And, like,
dude,
that's
so
Riley Gale
many.
right there. That's talking about Power Trip. That's him. That's the lead singer of Power Trip, who was probably sadly dead by this point, wearing an obituary shirt. So it's just more of those. Like, wait, who's this supposed to be? That's Cliff Burton. But I don't. It looks like Kirk Hammett, but he's not dead. And these are all supposed to be dead musicians, I'm assuming.
Yeah, they gotta be. They gotta be all passed away. Yeah.
But God, this scream, dude. This scream.
Is that John Lennon in the back?
It might be. This is just, and the fingers on the bass here, just the tension in the arm, like, just adding to this absolute pain and catharsis through this page is just.
I mean, he's pulling straight from, like, I know the artist, I don't know how to say his name, but for the Lone Wolf and Cub books, like, a lot of those pages too, they're not anatomically correct, right? But it's cartooning. It's like putting out that expression. It's telling that story, and that's what he's pulling from. He's telling that story through emotion, and he's showing that through the characters and animating those characters in that way. And he, like I said before, and I'll say it again, he nails it, baby.
He absolutely nails it. And then I'm just going to kind of flip through this back matter while we're kind of just chatting and wrapping
you see,
up.
like, the first chats, or not the first chats, the first, like, sketches of it, where he's kind of like those small arms, and then you see him beef him up later on, and he's getting comfortable with it. Like, this is the stuff I live for. And James Herron, please do this. Do something like this for Ultra Mega.
Give us back matter.
Please. Please. I want to see what you're doing. I want to see those crazy sketches.
I love the vest as part of the early concept too.
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Can't give everybody a vest.
I know we unfortunately feel like we dominated most of this. It looks like Nate had to leave.
Oh yeah.
He said goodbye in chat. But actually, on that note, I am actually going to jump off as well. And man, it's been a real blast, guys. You guys, I'm pretty much done with Volume 1 of Murder Falcon. Based on where I am, I'm just gonna finish it after I do some stuff for my family. But
Nice.
hey, are you guys thinking of doing a chat like this again in the future for another comic?
Probably once a week.
Yeah,
Cool.
we're gonna try and do that. Yeah.
Let me know. Let all of us denizens know in advance, so that if it's a comic I haven't read, I can.
Manny? What did we say we were thinking about next? Do we want to do Ultra Mega, or do we want to do something different next?
If we do Ultra Mega, I actually have that because I got it from work, so then I can.
No, well, let's. You want to do Ultra Mega since we have it?
Yeah, that's cool.
I guess we can think about another comic over the next day or two and just throw it in the chat, I guess.
Yeah, we're not going to be super detailed with how we plan these out, but just kind of a week ahead of time. Just be like, let's do this one.
You guys don't have a PowerPoint presentation and an Excel spreadsheet?
No, I didn't prepare any thoughts for this really, Sam. I just kind of read the book last night and then was just I'm going to talk about it. But that's to speak to how much we love this book. I mean, it's just it's easy to talk about. Yeah, but all right, Sam, we'll let you go. We love you, bud.
Great.
Love you, Sam.
Yeah, man.
Bye.
Love your face.
But I'm so glad that you guys pulled this together. When you reached out and said, "Hey, you want to talk about Murder Falcon?" Immediately was just hell yes, like definitely. But then I ran over, like, I have, this probably says way too much about how much of a Daniel Warren nerd I am, but I have like a short box, a short box and a half, completely dedicated to like all the singles of Daniel's books that I have. And I was just like, all right, pull out the Murder Falcon section and just start rereading all of it. And then I remembered, I'm like, oh crap, that's right. He had the short and Skybound, so I had to dig that up. And
Yeah.
I absolutely love this. So I'm so glad you guys reached out and asked if I wanted to do this, because it meant I got to read through it all again, re-experience it. I actually read issue 1 to my youngest, who was 7.
Oh, nice.
And who is 7. And dude, the whole time, like, it was so great too. Because when like the guitar playing went, I was like, I'll just do dun 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 dun. And by the time that issue 1 was over, like anytime Jake was playing the guitar in the comic book, like she started doing the dun 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 dun. I'm like, this is freaking awesome. So
that makes my heart happy.
We didn't get into any of the super heavy stuff, but we at least got through issue 1.
That's awesome.
You're telling me your
That's
youngest hasn't come to terms with her own mortality?
Hopefully I'll let her live without that for a long time. Sorry, that was a bad place to pause.
But no, I appreciate anybody who's watched, stuck it out, listened to any of this conversation, got anything from this.
Yeah. Thanks for everybody that listened.
This is fun. Yeah. We'll hopefully do more of these. We love nerd.
Dude, we went 3 hours.
Yeah. With no game plan.
No game plan.
Imagine if we had a game plan.
I will never plan anything out in my life. You can't make me.
I wouldn't have it any other way, Kev. You're the best without a plan.
I don't know why my webcam decided to lose focus. Would it be faster or slower with a plan? I would definitely be slower, to be completely honest with you. I would overthink things a lot.
Talk about your writing process, Kev.
My writing process is for another day. Because I am tired.
Yeah.
It involves a lot of pacing and drafting. But all right, y'all. We'll close this stream up. Thanks for hanging out.
Indeed.
Remember to follow Mouth Breathers Guild on all socials. We'll join the Discord, find our links.
Oh, yeah. That good stuff. Let's see. At Ben_Hill_art.
Mm-hmm.
I do stream on Twitch as well on Saturdays, so hopefully if you guys follow me on Insta, you'll know when I stream and can come hang out. Because sometimes I have these guys on there too, and we shoot the breeze.
That is true.
And Time Police. Don't forget that.
Yeah.
Please read Time Police.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to release our 3rd part, and that will lead to something even bigger in March. So please stay tuned.
Oh, yeah. That'll be awesome.
Mouth is good. We have renowned books out if you want to read. We do not just talk about comics. We make them.
Your books are so good, guys, and they're gorgeous. They feel great. They look great. They read through amazing. So yeah, do it.
Awesome.
Go out.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah. And you can find me, The Manny Draws, at The Manny Draws. You are welcome.
Manny does draw.
Manny draws a lot, more than almost any living human being at this point.
You make me feel bad about myself for not drawing as much, but I have to remember it.
Don't feel bad. You have a family. It's okay.